So I will tell you, I wanted to do that for the Tested podcast, and people were really upset when we did it.
Why? Do they have
They did not.
Well, because it was like it was too many. It like triggered.
It's
people?
loud. It's
loud.
like a loud, obnoxious
it's kind of
noise coming
screeching.
out. Like if you're in the car, maybe you don't have the volume adjusted right for the podcast. You put the podcast on.
Exactly when you said it.
Muted.
Exactly when you said it.
I think whoever sits in that chair has to do that out of a tradition now.
Look, I've only done it like 5, 10, maybe 20
To be fair,
times.
it's usually me.
One too many.
Welcome. We're live on the internet.
We are live.
You can tell because we heard the stream coming out of Mikey's laptop. We're going to talk about computer stuff here, but specifically, I have Mike Danseglio, an actual security expert here, and we're going to talk about security, Windows 10 end of life, why you should be using USB sticks that you find on the floor, all of that
And
stuff.
why you should eat the floor candy as well while you're at it.
You might as well eat the floor. Actually, which is safer? Picking up a USB drive from the floor or candy from the floor? That's in the wrapper. It's in the wrapper.
In the wrapper. Is it good candy? Like, is it like a Reese's cup?
Oh, I mean, yeah. Like, it's got to be good candy. Like, if I saw one of those little peppermint patty things, I wouldn't even eat
Wait,
that.
you don't like a York?
No, not a York. I would eat a York. No, I'm saying the little white peppermint with the red stripes.
Those are the better ones.
That's hard candy.
Junk. I wouldn't get that up off the floor.
I feel like, though, it is easier to visually verify the integrity of the one you don't like because the twists are really hard to put back the way they were. Whereas something like a peppermint patty, like it's not hard to like unfold that thing.
Wait, hold on. It's hard to twist the thing like this? Just go like this?
To reproduce that exact tightness of that original twist off the factory.
We should test this.
Oh, okay.
Always
Spoken
be testing.
like somebody who comes from a show where they test.
No, but listen, even if you told me, hey, I compromised this peanut butter cup, I would still rather eat that than an uncompromised little, like, that's junk candy. That's horrible candy.
I'm with you on this.
Yeah.
Compromise in what way, though? Like, if someone's like, I put arsenic in it, like, you would still eat it? I mean, come on, dude.
How much? You don't know.
Yeah, he would eat it.
No, please don't.
If they told me it's a 2% chance.
Oh,
Those are good odds. I'd go to Vegas on those odds. Right?
But a 98% chance you win, a 2% chance you lose.
Yeah.
You won't even make it to
your
Vegas.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take that bet with your life. That
Live
sounds
life
good.
on the edge, man. I get no problem. I mean, it's a Reese's peanut butter cup. Hell,
Yeah,
probably
dude.
like one of those big cups too. You ever see the big old thick ones? Oh,
I don't like the big cups because the ratio is wrong.
no.
Yeah, the small ones are the best ones.
Yeah.
I'm with Adam on this.
Normal Reese cup, perfect ratio.
Oh my. Fair enough.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway,
This is going
to be fun.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. We're live here on the welcome. We got all the friends of the show coming in. Tim says, friend of the show, Tim says, please don't tamper with food.
Please don't.
Tim, don't tell me what to do. Okay.
Hey,
Tell him what to do.
I watched that Tylenol thing while I was sick. They didn't ever catch that person. So
I did watch that too. That was a good documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty good documentary.
You know why they have the child-proof on the Tylenol? Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's a good
They
documentary.
never found that person?
Never found him.
Damn.
I mean,
I
don't think
it's a
I don't
victimless crime, but it's the opposite.
I
of
also
that.
don't think it was a person. I bet it was a mess up at the plant.
You think it was a consortium? You think it was like
Well,
the
no.
mob?
No, because the
Don't talk
plant
too loud.
The plant was the only the plant investigated itself.
Oh yeah.
So it's like,
probably a good
oh
idea.
yeah, no, it's okay. What is it, Procter and Gamble? No, Johnson and Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson. They call that a no-fault post-mortem is what you call it. When you investigate yourself.
Johnson Johnson's like, no, it's okay. We can investigate our own plant and we'll tell you what happened. And they're like, nothing happened in our plant. What are you talking about?
I don't know, man. Before tamper-resistant seals, literally anyone could do something to a bottle. So,
I mean, even after temper-resistant seals, you can still do something with it, right?
Like it's like you could just buy a tamper-resistant thing and put a new seal on there. It's not. It's just.
Wait, hold on.
This is like taking your shoes off going through the airport. This
Hold
is
on.
just security theater.
We have a security expert here.
So,
Oh yeah.
So if you wanted to mess with a Tylenol bottle that's on the store
my.
shelf, could you?
none of you are
the
going
right way
to
to
like the
phrase
answer.
this.
None of you are going to enjoy this. So I go to security conferences a lot. I go to DEF CON, if you can't already tell, by wearing all the DEF CON swag. And
Eat that mic. Eat that mic.
What? Eat it?
Get on the mic.
You're, okay.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm right up like this.
There we go.
Yep.
So DEF CON actually has, every year, different villages, different areas that we can focus on and work on, and, like how to hack Wi-Fi and how to hack network packets. And one of them every year is how to hack tamper-evident devices and controls. It's called the Tamper Evident Village. And we spend 4 days, doing things like, oh, this seal protects this envelope, and there's a document behind this thing, and then getting into it, changing it, and then leaving no evidence is the thing we do. So yeah, the answer is yes, we could do that.
Security theater. It's all security theater. All security is security theater.
It all helps, but it ain't perfect. People spend their lives working on that stuff.
And
I'm not saying it's not possible, but I also live in a city where there are definitely stores where they lock things behind the shelves. So it's actually hard. In some ways, it's a benefit.
well, yeah. And
Well, except for the Tylenol thing was at the factory, right? So
I think it was at the factory, but who knows? Anyway, I also have something that I did not. You can trust me. I did not tamper with this.
boy.
This is a drink. Will I have some more so when you come in?
Cool.
This is when I went to Germany, I had a drink that I talked about here on the show called Spezi. I don't know how to pronounce it. But now they brought it to America.
Oh,
They brought it to America, and now it's called Sunset. And it is like it's the new viral soda by the brewery Polliner.
Is this from like
non-alcoholic?
Swig? Is this a Swig thing? You know about Swig, right?
I don't know what Swig is now.
They put like creamer into sodas.
Oh no!
All the
This
kids
is
are into it.
this is an orange flavored soda, So, like a Sunkist, but it does have caffeine. It's not non-alcoholic.
No fiber.
It is really good. No fiber.
Good.
This is my favorite drink that I had when I was in Germany, and I found out recently, thanks to Instagram, because they're always tracking, that they were like, "Oh, hey, you like Spezi? Well, guess what? Now we have Spezi here in the States. It's Sunset." So I was thinking, would you like to try some?
Absolutely.
Orange soda.
Yeah.
The viral orange soda. I have had it already, and it does taste exactly like the German kind. There you go. Would you like some orange soda,
A very small amount because I can't do the caffeine.
Willis?
I'll get some later. So, yeah.
Get some later. All right.
It might be flat by
later.
then, though.
It's okay.
That's
I have
okay.
other balls.
Wait, why does
You
it
can
look
have a
like
whole ball.
cola?
Well, no, because it is cola. It's orange flavored cola.
Like
So
to
it's-
say that.
So it's like if you took a Coca-Cola and mixed it with a Sunkist. Yeah. So it's orange flavored cola.
L'chaim.
Yeah. Boom. There we go.
Prost.
Cheers. Cheers.
sorry.
Cheers.
Oh, you mean
I'll just
I
drink
love
coffee
it.
like
It's good.
See, I never like to mix sodas, so yeah,
That's the fun part.
I can't even
Whoa.
just mix two. Can you guys? I know people can mix like up to
Cherry
7.
Coke is pretty good, though.
Yeah,
Vanilla Coke, okay.
I mean, and this is orange Coke.
I can't taste it.
The orange or the Coke?
It's a very
Well,
light.
it's actually not Coke. as well.
It's interesting because as someone who's used to American beverages where they just basically like punch you in the face with flavor, it's very light.
It doesn't punch you in the. There we go. That's you put that on the bottle. It doesn't punch you in the face with flavor.
There you go.
It's like this. So for anyone who's curious, to me, this is more like the flavor palette you get when you drink like LaCroix or like one of those like flavored seltzers where it's like a hint of the flavor. It's not necessarily like you expect to just get the flavor.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I like it. I'm glad it's here.
It just kind of tastes like sugar water to me.
I did message. Well, yeah, there's a lot of natural sugar in it.
Is it cane sugar?
I don't. Will it say it?
Oof.
I don't trust it, even if it says it. No, I did message our German colleagues from PCWorld, and told them how much I paid for this, and they laughed. So it's fine.
It's interesting actually how cheap really good food is in Germany.
yes.
It's nice.
Have you
You
been
go
to
to like Aldi's or one of the other stores, and you're like, wow.
I think it's also more like stuff here is very expensive. So anywhere we go is going to be cheaper than San Francisco.
No, that's not. I mean, that's true for restaurant food, but I do think as a port city, there's a lot of things that actually are cheaper here grocery wise. So like when I've gone to other major cities, like some of their produce is not as cheap as you can find it in San Francisco.
Avocados.
Avocados are cheap.
Yeah, usually. Anyway,
Germany.
anyway,
Anyway,
how How are the hamsters, Willis?
Hamsters are spinning. And
I mean,
running.
you haven't been at that desk for weeks.
I know. Hey, everyone, I'm back.
He's
yeah,
healthy
just
again.
trying to. Yeah, healthy again. Yes, all good and good health. So yeah, no, and making sure everything is running and smooth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Will really tried to replace you with Willis 2.0 and 3.0.
Oh
but
boy.
Yeah, we have Willis 3.0 in the box over there now.
I had to wreck that button.
Yeah.
Watch out, man. It's coming for you.
All right. Well, I say let's get this show started.
Let's get
Kick it.
Yeah. You ready?
Los Gates.
Are we ready? We ready?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
audience.
Yeah? You ready? Here we go.
Let's do this.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, we talk about security with a security expert, with a hacker, a certified ethical hacker. We'll talk about it. And the music's back.
Hey.
Woo! And
Whoa, what?
welcome everybody to episode 352 of The Full Nerd, your weekly, the best weekly podcast about PC news, PC building news. I am your fill-in host, Adam Patrick Murray, and we have finally brought back the music. The paperwork signed.
Yay.
It's all good. We have the music back.
It's been so long.
Yay! Oh man.
It's been so long.
We also have. I'm not alone. We have some special people here today. First, I'm going to go on the line. We got one Will Smith. Hello, Will.
Ahoy, hoy. Hello.
Welcome.
The man in the box.
Man in the box. We could only fit you in the box. You take up too much of the box, so Brad couldn't join. So we can only have one bearded
I can put a
person
picture of Brad
in
up
the
if
box.
you want. I can
Their
make that happen.
Their
On the
beards
little
duped it
dot
out.
display on your background. There we go. Here at the table is once again Eleni E. Hello.
Hello.
Who was not impressed with Sunset Cola.
I mean, in fairness, it's kind of hard to impress me when it comes to soda.
You know who else is really hard to impress is Willis Lai controlling the verticals and horizontals. Back after weeks.
Hello, everyone. Oh, wait, no. Yeah.
But most importantly, I saved the best for last. We have one Mike Danseglio. Mike Danseglio. I messed up your name. Here on the table. You've been on the show before, but I'm glad to have you here in person. Hello.
Glad to be here. Adam Patrick Murray.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. You, for those who don't know, who are you?
I am Mike Danseglio.
Oh, nice. Great. Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Nailed it.
Right.
No, you are a security expert. That's what I put in the title, security expert. Is that true or false?
Let me just go ahead and read right off the cue card. Thank you, Adam Patrick Murray, for having me here today in this PC Wild. I am very pleased here to be.
PC Space World. And you, so what makes you a security expert? Do you have your card?
I do.
Yeah?
I'm a card-carrying security guy.
Your hat doesn't look black enough.
I know. It's like a grayish.
Yeah.
Because I work both sides of that equation.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I
You have
do-
credentials.
I do. I have creds.
Which credentials do you have? I know them.
Do you
Maybe
want me
they
to tell
don't know
everybody
them.
else?
Sure, yeah.
So I work in information security. I teach mostly now, thankfully. I love teaching, and that's what I've been doing for a while. Before that, I used to do information security as a full-time profession. I worked on security architecture, security deployments. For a long time, I worked up in Redmond, Washington at Microsoft on security components of Windows, did a lot of writing for them, did some teaching for them, like wrote all the security guides, Windows security guides, stuff like that. What else do I do in the IT space? I'm a huge fanatic for all things tech, kind of, and that's why it's wonderful to be here with these
Nerd.
I'm self-professed nerd.
So I could call you a hacker, but you were an ethical hacker, technically, right?
That is true.
What makes a hacker ethical?
Ethical hackers have permission. Ethical hackers go out and find vulnerabilities with permission so that people can take that result and fix the stuff before bad people kind of exploit the heck out of it.
I like it.
Do people who like look for bug bounties and stuff like that, are they ethical hackers
Yes.
as well?
Yep.
Okay.
But they're for hire.
Yeah, we're all for hire. I mean,
true. Okay.
let's get philosophical.
Yeah.
Everybody has a price.
Everybody has a price.
So,
that is right.
yeah, for sure. Bug bounty, though, more specifically, is usually like people that are looking for code bugs, and oftentimes they target code that has a huge price tag. Like Google might pay $5,000 per exploitable 0 day. Microsoft might pay $7,500, whoever it is, and whatever the numbers are. So, and there's a lot of people that make a living doing that, and it's reporting that to those vendors and those companies oftentimes gets the issues fixed before the issues affect the rest of us. So they are definitely ethical hacking, just in a slightly different context.
Nice. Also, you are a nerd. You've worked at Microsoft.
I did.
We worked on the Xbox team for a while, but I would say your claim to fame for anybody who doesn't know you.
Don't use the word. Don't say it.
Well, no, I'm not gonna. UAC.
Oh yeah,
you're the
user account
inventor
control.
of UAC. The little pop up, when the pop up says yes or no, do you want to give people permission? You're the one who did that.
Yep, and I did it for my mom. Because my mom needed to be protected against pop-ups and bad things and installed software. And back in the day, she didn't have a way to know that something that was prompting her was going to do some bad stuff to the system as a whole. It was going to install software or run as admin. So I made it to protect my mom.
There you go. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Mikey's
Mom. Thanks, Mom.
Mikey,
Thanks, Mom.
were you there? Does that mean you were there for the SP2, Windows XP SP2 days?
Springboard, codenamed Springboard, absolutely.
Oh man, I want to talk to you for hours about this, but I'm going to stop because I have questions.
Wait, in a good way or in a bad
Yeah,
way?
no. I think it's a fascinating time because it was at the time it was incredibly unusual for Microsoft to change, to make such a commitment to changing. At least what it looked like from the outside was that they dropped everything else that they were working on to fix this problem that was a business and frankly kind of world critical problem. And I would love to know more about what it was like on the inside at that time.
I'll just give you a very, very short answer to that. It was like pulling teeth. Man, it was painful. And to give you the context for that, somebody works on a product for years and works on a feature for years, gets everything just right and everything works the way they want it to, and then Microsoft comes along as a whole and says, we have to make things more secure. So we're going to turn that off. We're just going to, by default, that's not going to happen anymore. We're going to pull that out because there's no way to protect people that are using it. And so people don't like that. Nobody wants to hear, oh, Microsoft's about to throw away this work or this product that I believe in because I'm creating it. And so suddenly you've got this teeth pulling, not literal teeth pulling. I shouldn't say it that way, but figurative.
Like what's happening in those back rooms?
Yeah, that was okay. Maybe
Ballmer really was a hard manager, huh?
Yeah. It was rough.
Well, you have great stories. We're going to try to keep this short today. We are tomorrow doing a live build with you. We're building a PC, so tune in on the PCWorld channel. It's over on this. It's over on the screen. Yep, sorry. A live build over on PCWorld. We're going to build you a new system, and it's going to be primarily for Linux use. Yeah, Ooh. For all you new Linux people that have been following us. Yeah, whichever. Yeah. Actually, no. Do the Asus one. No, the Kraken X53. Sorry, somebody's here for something, and there you go. There we go. Boom.
I like how you're like, anyone you want. No, not that one.
Yeah. No, that one. Sorry. So primarily Linux use, but also your use case, you need some firepower to brute force cracking.
Yep.
So yeah, we're not going to spoil what the build is, but tune in tomorrow. And I would like to have you share a fun story that you've shared with me before called TTP. Let's save that for tomorrow. You definitely want to hear this story, and it's Xbox related.
Yeah. You got it, man.
I know that. Yeah.
And then,
I think I've told you. I don't know if
and
I
then
know
most
this.
most of our listeners just tune out hearing the word Xbox.
Yeah.
No, it's a good Xbox story.
It is a really good story. So.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be. I'm just saying.
So anyway. We're going to talk about some stuff here, specifically on the show. We're going to talk about Windows 10 end of life, because I think there's a lot of confusion, not just from the security angle, but where should people be going as a hardcore Linux user over here? Like maybe you're here to convert us.
Hardcore. I'm not
in
a
air
zealot.
quotes. Okay.
I'm not gonna go
I didn't
that
say
far.
zealot. I just
Okay.
said hardcore. You use the command line. I literally saw you use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You showed me how to GP update.
How to ping the things.
Yeah,
GP update. Don't
GP
say that
update.
again,
Run
please.
that. And then we're going to talk about scams, because one of the things we were talking about was hey, in this new AI age, what scams, what kind of new scams are hot on the radar? Should we be worried about all that kind of stuff? Yeah. Yeah. So should we?
That sounds good.
Yeah,
I want to know what I should actually be worried about instead of the things that I do worry about that aren't real.
Well, I would say so. Yeah, let's kick it off with Windows 10. We all know in October, Microsoft has flagged as of right now, has not changed, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that they are end of lifing Windows 10. Meaning, what does that mean? What does that mean, Elena? Actually, I want you to describe what does the end of Windows 10 mean?
End of Windows 10 means that they're no longer supporting it, which means, in practical terms, you're not going to get security updates for it. And that's the biggest issue for most people.
And software updates, like so
but
all
the
that kind of
biggest thing is that they're not going to do security updates, and that also includes like if they find like vulnerabilities, like related to whatever is going on with the software as it is right now and how that interfaces or connects into Windows 10, then you're kind of just left on your own. In theory, they did slightly walk it back.
How?
Well, if you want to pay for security updates for a year, then you can kick that can down the road as to what you actually want to do with your hardware that will be unsupported at some point.
Yeah. Well, the first use case, I think probably all of us have had this maybe, but recently, or I guess in the past 6 months, my grandma was like, hey, I've got this really old laptop. It's telling me that I need to buy a new one because it's not going to get Windows 11. You know, like I don't know how the pop-ups were affecting, but it was enough that my grandma was like, hey, do I need a new machine? What should I do? All that kind of stuff. I ended up getting her on a new machine with Windows 11, but she could have used it. Could she? What do you think, Mikey?
I'm
Could she
wondering
have
why you
used
didn't
it?
get Grandma on Linux.
Oh, I know. We'll get
Arch,
yeah,
maybe?
I know. We should have done that. Yeah. Hey, Grandma, you like the command line, right?
Arch is I was told that Arch is a good first time OS for people.
Oh
Like,
gosh,
they should just get in there.
No, we're not going to get into Linux yet. Let's hold that.
dude, that our video. So if you haven't already looked at the PCWorld channel, because now our podcast is on its own channel, we posted some videos from our Micro Center tour, and a part of that tour, Adam was randomly, I think somebody put it in the comments, aggressively asking people if they were Linux users. And there's a bunch of quick interviews that we did with different Linux users, and apparently this video drew all of the Linux faithful out. So there is an amazing number of comments on that particular video, and it's hilarious to see how many of it is just like the significant portion of it is people just talking about what distros they're using, and then a very substantial, though not like majority portion, is people saying, well, it's already the year of Linux because Linux is basically what powers Android, and Android is so dominant in the world, so obviously we won. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we already won, bro.
Actually.
And then there's like a small portion where the people are actually kind of debating and discussing like what would be good for beginners versus not. And Arch does come up more than once as a comment.
What?
No, not as good for beginners, but as a comment of, I think there was at least one person in the interview who mentioned they were on Arch or used it, and they're like, yeah, that's not what I would start with. Basically what a lot of the comments were.
All right. Well, my first question, Mikey.
Yeah. Hi.
Would you recommend people who are staring down the barrel of Windows 10 ending go for Linux?
So I have to answer this kind of security perspective, or just generally?
Yeah, let's start generally.
Just we're going to hold you to it. People are going to call you and ask for support if it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So,
Mom, if you're watching, don't call me for tech support.
Too late.
We've had that conversation. So I think really the answer is I wouldn't throw away gear at this point and migrate to Windows 11. If my gear supported Windows 11 and I was on Windows 10, absolutely I'd move on Windows 11 because you're going to get a lot of features, you're going to get a lot of updates, you're going to get a lot of tweaks and stuff like that. If my gear, and this laptop, this Lenovo, is orphaned on Windows 10, can't be upgraded to Windows 11 without hacking the install, which I'm not going to do because that's just not okay for me. It's not okay in my mind to do that because I'm going to kind of unsupported state.
Also, I wouldn't expect Grandma to do that either. I wouldn't want to give Grandma a hacked
Grandma's not going
System.
to edit uninstall.ini. Grandma's not going to pre-provision the device. I maybe your grandma will, but not my grandma.
Well, Mikey, my grandma, I'm a little bit older than you guys. So anyway,
Back in my day.
why would you not want to run it in that kind of in between liminal unsupported state? Like, are there specific reasons?
Elaine is laughing, so I think
Wait,
she already knows the
and
answer
real quick,
to this.
you mean like Windows
I know
10?
the answer to this too. I'm asking.
No, that's the reason I'm
gotcha.
laughing, because he's saying it so straight faced,
That is
but I
pretty
can
good.
just see him going, "Here's the softball."
Oh, here you go.
And to be clear, you mean Windows 10 after October?
Yeah, well,
Say you did.
No, running
the other
Windows
one.
11.
Oh, Windows
It's
11.
like on unsupported hardware.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's
like
a
hacking
bazillion
it.
guides that pop up in my Google feeds and stuff all the time that are like, hey, here's how to install Windows 11 on some machines that will fail the compatibility check. And it's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do that. Why not, Mikey?
We know it's bad. I don't know why
Yeah.
it's bad, but
You did the voice, Will. That got me. The voice really got me. On that. So,
he does a really good voice. Hopefully it comes out.
Actually,
almost any update that Microsoft pushes. Well, let me start. Microsoft pushes updates for Windows 11 that assume that every system that received them meet the requirements. And so if they push an update that assumes that you have this processor or this TPM config or this OS config, and it breaks your system, they don't care. I shouldn't say they don't care. They're not going to stop an update because they made an assumption that's a fair assumption to make. So if you violate that requirement, if you bypass the system requirements, any update at all could stop your system from working in a bad way at a bad time. So it's just it's a stupid idea. It also violates your license agreement, but that's a whole different thing.
Friend of the show, Robert Lawrence asked, I'm going to turn it into a question.
Okay.
Is that better or worse than having Windows 10 without updates? Like running Windows 10?
That's an interesting question.
Which would you rather have if you had only those two options?
So I think, so you're absolutely right. I think for me, if I couldn't afford a hardware upgrade, I would stick with Windows 10 and I'd probably pay the few bucks for the first year. And Microsoft said they're going to double the price of these updates.
They're going to make it
every
a poison pill kind of proposition. Yeah.
Exactly. But I would be looking actively for, I can maybe get a year or 2 years out of this device. I would be looking to get off that device. I wouldn't want to stay on Windows 11 without updates. Windows 10. Windows 10 without updates would be a generally really, really bad idea from a security perspective. Also, from a stability perspective, software compatibility perspective, those updates do an awful lot for us. But if I just couldn't move off of Windows 10, I would either pay for the updates or I would virtualize the Windows 10 machine on Windows 11 if I had like an app that only ran on Windows 10, which there's very few apps that you're going to find that only would run on Windows 10 and not 11. But if
I think
that
it's
was
more
the
the
case,
cost thing, because essentially people are like, it's asking you, hey, well, I have a laptop that I like and I can continue to use. I mean, so why can't I just continue to use it? Oh, no, I have to buy a new one? Yeah.
I want to go back real quick to this idea of running Windows 11 on unsupported hardware and us comparing Windows 10 without the security updates versus that. But so here's my question, because I haven't really delved deep into this. If you're running Windows 11 on unsupported hardware, that suggests that you don't have like a TPM configuration that is valid for it. And so is it even a fair comparison to say that Windows 10 without security updates is like worse than Windows 11 on unsupported hardware? Because if you're not actually getting the security features of Windows 11, like, is it actually worse than Windows 10? Like, is it even able to use Windows 10's level of security, like that security approach? Like, that's the kind of question I would have for you as more of the expert of knowing like how the nuts and bolts work.
That's a curious one. I still think I would want folks on Windows 10. I would want them on a supported platform regardless.
Right, of course.
But
we're comparing not ideal scenarios
Yeah.
and seeing which one is worse.
that is
without
tough.
knowing the specific hardware configuration. It's kind of like speak for all people. Mike.
Yeah. Just like Linux, you're going to be the, speak for all Linux users.
Exactly. And that's not going to happen. I can't even speak for two of them at the same time. I really do think that the security requirements that stop people from installing Windows 11 and using Windows 11 are in most cases, edge case protection, like the CPU generation. It's a little more edge case, some of the features in the CPU that they're requiring. So I would actually rather stick with. God, that's a tough one. I don't really have a good answer.
That's fair. I just thought I would try to dive into the weeds a bit with it.
Here's another thing. So, friend of the show, Raphael, says, "What about air gapping? Could you say, hey, you know what, Grandma, you continue to do Windows 10 unsupported, but I'm gonna like configure the network so that there's a gap between you and the internet."
Well, air gapping would be that Grandma's computer doesn't connect to anything, literally, like
Yep.
no network
is that what that
connectivity
is? Oh,
whatsoever.
I thought that was having it in a separate.
And if all
network.
Grandma does is run Microsoft Hallmark Card Maker, right, on that CD, and that's all she does.
Oh, there you go.
Or my grandfather, he actually ran one of those Microsoft casino game things, and that's literally all he did.
Well, how are they going to get to MSN.com?
Well, the AOL. Need to get on the AOL.
Dial up.
Then stick with whatever OS is on there. You don't need a patch. If you're not connecting to anything, it's literally approaching zero risk.
Sorry, I misunderstood what air gapping was.
But yeah,
this is like the corporate America factory solution, right? Is that you have like a giant multi-million-dollar machine that runs a Windows 95 box with a dongle plugged into it that only works on Windows 95, right?
Yep.
But it's at least not
Like
connected
this
to the
is the
internet.
manufacturing solution for, yeah.
Well, but then, yeah, okay. Well, okay.
But if it works, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, so one of the things they did say, is about like, hey, security updates, vulnerabilities. But we have seen in the past, I guess this was more on the CPU side, but remember when Intel, what was the name of that big?
We're talking like Spectrum Meltdown kind of
Yeah, where they were like, oh, we're not going to update, chipsets beyond a certain range, and then some companies ended up like pushing updates to the system.
Gordon used to give me crap for that because I had an Intel motherboard for my Sandy Bridge processor, and he was like, "You need to get off that." And I was like, "It's on the supported list." And he's like, "Man, you got lucky. There was some major corporation who must have bought that." And I was like, well, maybe it was made by the company who.
Well, but for laptops, right? Like laptops aren't going to be happy. Because, maybe laptop vendors like, Grandma still uses my HP. She might switch to a MacBook. I don't want her to do that. So I want her to stay on my I'm just calling it HP here.
I don't.
Like, could HP pick up the reins and like do their own security updates or
Oh, that's an interesting. I don't think so. I mean, they would need access to Windows source code, which they could all license and get. But then they would actually have to have. It's a lot of people that write patches and test those patches.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think it becomes. So here's the thing. I don't want to say anything that's actually an active defense of Microsoft on this one, but I think it is a realistic thing to consider that for any company, there's a certain point where you don't have the personnel to be able to support something. And so that's why they start drawing cutoff lines, right? That's like why things go end of life, because they want to move on to other things, or they have personnel, they've moved on to new projects, and they don't have people who can continue to do whatever updates are necessary to keep that piece of machine or that piece of hardware alive.
Look, Elena, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, like, I think in Windows 10's case, where it's still the majority of users that are using it, this is an interesting line in the sand because I'm not involved in security to any degree near Mikey, but I think a lot of these companies are looking at the landscape, are aware of what AI is doing to the landscape, and they are realizing that in order to keep users protected, knowing that most users aren't going to listen to a podcast like this, aren't even going to use a better password than password 1578 because they think not having sequential numbers is still going to be better. Don't really know what a passkey is, things like that. Then they actually have to create systems to protect them without them realizing there are systems, right? Like just how we build bridges with guardrails on it, right? So people just don't fall off them because they slip or they like look too far over the edge. It's kind of a similar thing, right? So I think that was, if I was going to put a good spin on it, or rather, if I were going to put a good spin on it, I think Microsoft is doing this in part because they're looking at what they think the threat landscape is going to be, and they say, okay, like we need these pieces of like hardware, like the TPM, that kind of requirement that will allow us to do these more sophisticated security practices to help people save people from themselves or from people who are looking to like seek out these vulnerabilities, and they don't have to think about it, right? But then the problem with Microsoft, in my opinion, it's always been they're so bad at messaging. They are so bad at messaging, right? They've had these really good ideas over the years, right? So like, you talked about Xbox earlier. The whole idea of like an always-on console was what they promoted, which was the wrong thing to promote. They should have said, hey, this digital landscape that we're promoting allows you to share your entire library with people. You can there was some actually really good features in it, but did they talk about it? No. And so of course everybody's like, we don't want this. Why are you trying to change a formula that we know and like?
And then you ended up getting it years
Yeah,
later
and it's
anyway.
the same thing I think with this, where they didn't come out and say like, hey, there's a lot of scary stuff out there, and this is going to be a very painful transition, and we know that. But one of the reasons why we're trying to push it is because they're trying to get ahead of the curve on it. And they have never said this. And at this point, even saying this on this podcast, I'm sure people are thinking, wow, you're just shilling for them, because that's what happens when you don't get in front of the messaging. Anyway.
Yeah, right.
Well, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, the choice is: are people going to run old unsupported Windows 10,
Yes.
which is what the vast majority of these people are going to do?
Yep.
I think.
Yes.
That statistically speaking, nobody's going to install hacked versions of Windows 11. And the big question is, how many people are going to install Linux?
So I think, in fairness, I actually say in Linux's credit, to Linux's credit, I think the number of people who would install Linux is actually bigger than the number of people who would try to run unsupported Windows 11.
Yeah.
Because I think for the people who are trying to install unsupported Windows 11, there's a healthy portion of, I'm getting something by the man. Like, the man can't keep me down, right? There's a little bit of that in there, or a decent portion of
Isn't
it.
that also the Linux people too?
However, no, but the thing is that I think you have to have a healthy, attachment to that feeling, in addition to having some kind of app that can only run on Windows. And I think for more people, like your grandma, they are most likely not running apps that are really tied to Windows. A lot of people these days basically use their Windows laptops as glorified Chromebooks, Chromebooks with much extra functionality, which is why I feel much more comfortable these days recommending Chromebooks to most people, because that's really all they use. And there are web apps that can handle things like Photoshop's capabilities that are free or way cheaper. And people only care about that price tag. They don't really care about Photoshop. And a lot of these tools now will do things that we used to need Photoshop for, that like a trained graphic designer would have to sit in Photoshop and do painstakingly by hand. Now the one benefit to things like AI is that you're like, hey, can you remove this background for me? And it's like, and it's done, right?
Yeah.
So most people can get by on that. So for people like that who are like, well, I don't want to go out and buy a Chromebook. Well, I was told by my tech friend or relative or whoever that I can do something like with Linux. So I guess they'll do it for me, or I'll look into it. I guess I can relearn where everything is and how these things work. But otherwise, most people are just going to fire up Chrome or Firefox, or some kind of browser, and that's it for them. And they're not going to care about being like, okay, well, how do I circumvent these requirements? And as Mikey was saying, do I go into INI files and all that kind of stuff? So I think in this one case, Linux does have the edge.
Interesting.
Well,
Wow.
a lead Linux fan.
Yeah.
It's the year of Linux.
Yeah, exactly.
The marketing's working on me.
That's what I've heard. So, but I do think, to your earlier point, most of the people who aren't going to buy something new, aren't going to go through the hoops of either, cracking into Windows 11 or Linux or something like that, are probably just going to run unsupported.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Sadly.
They're not going to pay $30 even.
So for those people, worst case scenario where they just continue their life, and do nothing, what does that landscape look like, you think?
Well, I think we learned a lot of that from Windows XP. when Windows XP end of lifed, within, I think it was 3 weeks, there was a newly discovered 0-day exploit in the wild for Windows XP, and it was taking over it was giving kernel level access to attackers. And this was in the wild. It was very quickly after XP end of life. And it's arguable whether somebody was holding on to that kind of exploit, that malware, whatever.
Like they knew it was coming and they're waiting.
It's quite likely. I don't know. I wasn't there for that part, but yeah. And I think that same kind of thing is going to happen right in November of this year. There's going to be a lot of exploits that attack Windows 10 unpatched based on what happens, especially actually, now that I think about it, it's even worse in this case because Microsoft announces which updates and patches they're deploying every month. So Patch Tuesday for some of you. On Patch Tuesday, they'll say, this is the November 2025 patch update for Windows 10 for the people that are paying. Here are the 17 vulnerabilities that we're going to patch.
Oh, they're telegraphing it.
Now, everybody else that's not paying is vulnerable to those 17 vulnerabilities already. Don't have to do anything extra. All I need is an exploit. And I'll just look up the exploit sample code from the people that found the exploit or that created the exploit or discovered the vulnerability, craft that, weaponize that, done.
This seems fine. This is going to be a golden age for black hat hacking and taking over grandma's computer.
Well, did the same thing happen for Vista
Thanks, Microsoft.
and 7 and 8? Because those ended of life as well. Like, was it as bad there?
It wasn't as bad.
Okay.
Microsoft.
So could it be not as bad here for Windows 10?
So Microsoft softened up some of those with, we said we're not going to release patches, but we're actually, this one's real bad and it's really close. We're going to kind of squint and say, yes, let's go ahead and throw that out there. Let's deploy that one, even though we said we're not going to do it. I don't know how hard they're going to be with Windows 10, given that Windows 11 has this huge messaging, making people aware at least. Maybe not in a good way, but they're making people aware that this is coming. And this huge roll up and run up to tell people Windows 10 is going to be end of life. So I don't know how flexible or soft they're going to be, but that just delays the inevitable. Right? If someone's not going to pay for Windows 10 updates, maybe they'll get a Windows 10 update in November, but not December. Microsoft's going to cut it off.
Is there possible they'll do like a thinned out version of Windows 11 that doesn't have that doesn't require because the big gate is the TPM2 module support, right? Yep. I mean, do you think there's possible that they'll do like they did this with the EU with the no browser version of Windows in the past? It's a fairly different.
What was that noise?
We don't talk about Windows N, please. It's like the V word. We don't say those things out loud.
The N stands for nice. Man.
It's really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I hear it's a nice place to go in France.
Yeah, but like, do you think that that they'll do an end around this to bring these people into a place where they're supported?
So funny enough, Gordon and I had this exact conversation the last time we worked together, and my prediction was Microsoft is definitely going to back off on the TPM requirement. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, you were very strong on it.
Yeah, and I was wrong, and I'll eat that. I own that. If Gordon was here, I would just absolutely take that
paper. Yeah.
I'd hand him the belt because he was right and I was wrong. But so I don't know. Will, I really don't know. I really hope and wish that they will. Technically, theoretically, you can run Windows 11 in a VM, and the VM may or may not provide virtual TPM. The VM may or may not provide virtual secure boot. So that instrumentation is there. Microsoft has it, but I don't think so. I don't think they're going to back off on these requirements. I think they're really messaging people, get rid of your machine.
Or pay the upgrade. It's probably rather than doing that, segmented off, they're probably like, oh no, you have an option to pay for it for a couple of years.
I do find it, I don't know, ironic's not the right word, but maybe, and hilarious is a little too strong, but there's somewhere in that space that, this is for the purpose of improving security, and this act will likely cause massive insecurity in this space for a good portion. And I think, unfortunately, there are going to have to be enough people who learn kind of the hard way to force people to move. But so here's the thing that and this is kind of not really directly related to the security part, but still sort of related, because with all the uncertainty caused by the U.S. fiscal policy stuff we've seen in the early part of the year, and still a lot remaining that we don't know is going to happen or not happen, that I wonder if that could compel Microsoft to stay this for a bit. Because
prices on laptops have definitely elevated.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Microsoft has been kind of indifferent to that stuff in the past, right or wrong. They've been kind of not, we don't care. So I don't think that would move them. I really don't. I don't know. I really think they're going to bulldoze. I think Gordon was right. They're just going to plow ahead with this. And they're telling folks how much it's going to cost, like way in advance. They're giving home, to be fair to like Aunt Sally and Graham and Gramp, they're giving home discount. Like if you're on Windows 10 Home, it's going to be like $10 a year.
30. I thought it was 30.
10 for the first year.
Oh, 30
and then
total.
20.
Oh, they've changed that.
They changed it because originally it was 30. As
Last
the
time I
starting,
looked, and
as a
maybe I'm
starting
wrong.
point.
Let's start. Let me ask the Google machine.
Live fact checking.
Or the
We
search
love it.
engine.
Live fact checking.
Okay, yes. I will say that I don't have any of that data in front of me because I'm totally unprepared. But
I'm just going to
I
ask
sent you
Gem
a
the
link,
Copilot
actually. Yes,
because
you
it knows.
No,
Also-
don't ask AI.
Also, we don't know how it's going to surface it
Yeah.
to grandma either, right?
We don't, and we don't know what the messaging is going to be. We don't know if it's going to be a scare screen like Apple is so famous for. We don't know. I couldn't not do that, right? I had to do that, right? Adam?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
It's okay. They're safe. Macs never get viruses. So
Yeah,
grandma,
thank
just
God
get a
for
Mac.
that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the KDE site trying to get you to go into Linux.
Oh, yeah.
Linux never. You don't worry about Windows 10. Go to Linux because you don't get viruses on Linux.
And this is a
pile of
official
garbage.
KDE website.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what they used to say about macOS until it started getting more popular.
yeah, and now it's
Well-
what malware.
I have looked. I found a site.
Yeah.
It does say for individuals or Windows 10 home customers, extended security updates for Windows 10 will be available for purchase for $30 for 1 year.
Okay, then I'm wrong. Then the number is off. Sorry about that.
Either way, I mean, $30, that's not bad.
No,
They also say it can't be renewed after the first year, though. So it's like
Really?
you're buying 1 year for $30 for
Oh, really?
consumers.
Oh, I
for
thought it
commercial
was-
organizations, it doubles every year.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they're treating home and everyone else very differently.
So
I mean, that's look, they put a bunch of crapware on home computers and they don't on their corporate computers. So
That's true.
yeah, well, but we did
Don't you
actually
wanna
talk
use
about this.
OneDrive?
Oh, yeah, OneDrive. Why don't you use OneDrive? We did talk about this earlier though too, before the show started, because I would have assumed like, oh, okay, well if they're saying that, then there's probably of the 53% globally that are still using Windows 10, a majority of that is probably enterprise use, right? You would think like large deployments, they're still stuck there, but you kind of have a different opinion on that then, like how many is like personal versus enterprise?
Huh?
For Windows 10 that are still on Windows 10,
Oh.
how much of that 53% is enterprise use versus home use?
I was a little surprised. Enterprises that I deal with tend to be going with, let's get Windows 11 out there with device renewals, like refresh. So many companies are on like a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year cycle where they roll machines in and out. And they've been deploying Windows 11 for quite a while. So the number of Windows 11 machines in the enterprise grow. The number of Windows 10 machines in an enterprise shrink. A little bit stronger, I think, than the whole market.
Which makes sense, yeah, because most internal policies are like to refresh hardware every set number of years, and when that new hardware comes in, they just roll with Windows 11.
Yeah.
They don't drop it back down. So
The
that
challenge,
makes
though,
sense.
is though like every time these companies are filling up their closets and their storage bins with these perfectly good Windows 10 machines that they just can't run Windows 11 on, and that's frustrating. And so I'm a big fan of upcycling and using things again. So I think the used I'm quite positive the used device market is going to explode towards the end of this year with really good devices that just won't run Windows 11.
I can see that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I have an operating system we could switch to. Because
BOS?
I just remembered, and I brought it with
BOS.
me.
Oh, can we talk about BOS? I love BOS. It's my favorite. I started out because I was reviewing BOS for Ars Technica 100 years ago.
I did not know that. It was
Yeah,
a good
it's-
OS.
It was incredible. You could run like 5 videos at the same time. You couldn't do that on Windows or Linux.
Business
or,
operating system.
No, BOS. BEOS.
Oh, BEOS.
It's Jean-Louis Gasset's Mac OS replacement that when Steve got sucked back from Next got killed, basically.
Oh, next.
Conceived
Yeah.
for the company's B-Box personal computer. Actually, a B-Box sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was beige, but it was neat.
Well, you know what's even cooler?
Oh, Are we transitioning to something?
No, running Windows on a Game Boy. How about this? How about everybody just goes and buys a version of Windows
What
for the Game Boy?
is that?
This is a legit copy that I bought. We ran an article on PCWorld a couple months ago about this. This is a homebrew Game Boy cartridge that literally runs Windows. It's not actual Windows, but like it's
That
a
is-
funny version here. Yeah,
That's something, man.
I brought my analog pocket.
Oh, nice.
Are we
can
running it
actually-
right now?
Oh, wow.
we can actually
Live
run it,
on
Doing it
air?
live.
Yeah, unfortunately we can't show it on screen, so we're not going to get too deep into it. But it is like an actual Game Boy cartridge, and it's pretty funny. We don't have to get into it, but yeah, Windows on a Game Boy. Who'd
Worried about the
thunk?
Windows 3.1 police coming by with a copyright strike?
Look,
Is that what you're
and
worried
you-
about?
and
Oh
can-
gosh, I can't even imagine trying to navigate.
Well, look, you can play Minesweeper. Oh, here we go. So,
Oh, sweet.
Wait, does it have ski free?
hold on.
Wait, is it Windows 3.1?
Keyframe was
Adam?
the best.
Wasn't it?
It absolutely was the best.
So yeah, check out the cartridge. Read the cartridge. See what you feel like. Yeah, some of the features that it comes with.
I want to talk more about Ski Free
Okay.
and the Abominable Snowman.
Yes,
gotta get away from the Yeti, man.
But seriously, right? So why?
Ski-free? What
This
was
is what I don't
ski-free?
understand about Microsoft.
Oh, wow.
Like the best way to get people to just keep moving to newer operating systems
Yeah.
is to keep the things that they love, right?
Oh, I remember
and
this.
they don't,
Yeah.
and they never, and they like just abandon ski free, and then the same thing. Like
Oh,
I could not get my
wow.
parents to upgrade for the longest time
Yep.
to Windows 10 because they wanted to play Solitaire, but they wanted to play the Windows 7 and
Yep.
earlier version of Solitaire.
Yep.
They do not enjoy the weird extra fancy version that comes with Windows 10 and I guess maybe Windows 11. I haven't checked for them. And it's just
there.
like
It's
if
the
I
same
could
one.
if they could just release that, I could get my parents on the newest operating system so much faster.
I'm with you. I'm more of a Minesweeper person, but I will tell you that Ski Free was written by one person at Microsoft, just had a single developer, tester, release manager, just one person. And he put the Abominable Snowman, for those of you that don't know, this Ski Free game is an old game where you're
forgot
just
about
skiing
this, yeah.
downhill and sometimes a dog pees on you and sometimes you crash into things. And it's just this fantastic low res
about
game.
that.
love that.
And I've got it running actually on Windows 98. I installed Windows 98 as a virtual machine because I want to run Ski Free. That's no joke. But the reason the Abominable Snowman comes out and grabs you is because he was concerned that the high score, if you got a score high enough, it would actually break the game.
the
He
numbers.
didn't want to store the value too high. And so he engineered it so that you couldn't get a score so high that the game would break. And he used an Abominable Snowman to come out and eat you. So you would stop, you would end the
Yeah.
game.
And it was
Literally-
both infuriating and amusing at the same time.
It was so cute.
It's literally the most Microsoft solution for a problem ever. Oh, hey, there's going to be a buffer overrun if we have the score too high, so just, kill the player.
Snowman,
They'll
why
never
not?
know.
Let's just snowman that thing out.
That's funny.
So you can never outrun the Yeti.
You couldn't. No, you couldn't. It's
You
in the
could do
code.
it for like a very, very short period, but inevitably.
Yeah.
What if
Get
there's
you.
somebody? I mean, there's always that person online like trying to speed run and break something,
Yep.
and there'll be a documentary about that person later, and they're like, "You played that game for how long? Trying to do this
Have
one
you
thing."
seen the Tetris?
Exactly,
Yeah,
right?
Like
Tetris.
the culture around
So
Tetris.
there probably
Yeah.
is a way.
Terrible.
There probably is
Yep.
a way to do it, and I bet there's somebody in their room right now, like who's been playing it nonstop for 10 plus years.
Well, there's a Ski Free page from the person who wrote Ski Free
Oh,
at
nice.
ski.ihawk.net. They
Are we
don't
sure
actually
it's
say
legit?
their name on it that I can say.
I don't remember the person's name, unfortunately. I would out
but
them.
it-
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, I put the link in the chat if people want to find
cool.
it. You can download a version that runs on Windows 32-bit.
Oh, can you?
Yeah,
But
I went through all
32-bit isn't like. you
well,
have
it'll
to
still
run-
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, they didn't make a 64-bit port of Ski Free.
Oh,
Why not?
yeah. Hello, right here.
does Microsoft still
I
own
know.
that?
What? Does
Does Microsoft still own that? You think?
Ski Free? Yeah, probably the
Yeah.
IP. Sure.
Because he made it while his time during there, so they
Exactly.
probably
It's
just
it's gonna be an Xbox Series Y launch title, Ski Free Extreme.
extreme.
You know, there are plenty of people who play Power Washing Simulator,
Yeah.
Look,
right? So
Yep.
Amped. I would
actually
play.
pretty
I
good.
mean, Amped is the spiritual successor to Ski Free. I think. Right.
There we go. I like it. All right. Well, Is there anything else? So we will actually be shooting some videos about this Windows 10 end of life stuff.
Yep.
So there's more to come from that. But is there anything else we want to bring up as part of this conversation? Anything you think people need to keep in mind, or we didn't answer?
The question I have is, what are people like? If you keep running Windows 10, you already hit it, right? It's exploits. But is there anything else beyond that? Are you going to be more prone to phishing and ransomware and stuff like that, or is it just like a whole cavalcade of bad things can potentially happen to you if you're running unsupported software?
I think it's more going to be the just vulnerabilities that are already in Windows. You're not going to have any protection, and attackers are going to know about them, and you're not going to have any way to really protect yourself from some types of attacks. Some types of attacks, yes, you can, like just good general internet behavior and hygiene, but there's going to be a lot of stuff that there's literally no way you'll be able to protect yourself from.
Even if you have an strong antivirus solution, like Norton.
Yeah.
Like Norton for gamers.
There you go. I remember that. Didn't they have that?
No, it's
They still have it.
is a thing.
They still have that.
It's actually, I mean, on their part, it's kind of clever in terms of marketing how you slice, because it's the same product, but they just,
For gamers, it's got
Yeah.
LEDs right there in the
It
virus.
controls your RGB. But yeah, what if somebody does have antivirus? Do you think that still is not going to do anything?
Antivirus, safe. It would be the same advice I give anybody that's using a computer: safe browsing habits and work habits and safe, But Windows Update, or keeping your OS update, regardless of the OS, keeping your OS up to date. OS is such a critical function of being secure that you're just kind of. You're missing a thing. It'd be like driving a car where, I could technically drive this car without bumpers. And as long as I don't get in an accident, as long as I'm really safe, there's no real difference. But if I get in an accident, if something happens or just a bad driver, maybe not my fault, I have much, much, much less protection, much more damage.
all right.
Yeah, because here's a pointed question from friend of the show, Liquid R. Should I upgrade if my Windows 10 PC is used solely for gaming? Say somebody literally just uses Steam.
Well, Steam does a pretty good job of scanning for malware on their games before they release them. They're actually pretty good. They're not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but they're pretty darn. I'm aware of, I think, one instance where they've released a game that had malware.
Yeah.
Here's my counter to that. I mean,
Yeah.
in addition to what Mikey's saying, but counter to the idea that you're only using it for gaming, I would argue that most people who are using a gaming PC do not actually only use it for gaming.
Exactly.
You have a browser open, you potentially have Facebook open, you have Discord running, that kind of stuff. And so if you're doing that, you are still opening yourself up to more vulnerabilities. If you were literally playing a single player game that you could play offline, then maybe you'd be okay. But I think that that's I wouldn't say misnomer, that's not the right word for it, but I think it's a misclassification to say that people only are using a gaming PC for gaming.
Also, you probably don't just use Steam. Maybe you have Epic
And you have
installed.
other launchers
you have
as
Blizzard,
well
you
too,
have-
and
Install
it's like
mods.
another
Yeah.
And so I mean, the thing is that a vulnerability is a vulnerability, and so here's the thing too. Maybe more edge case, but if the vulnerability they exploit allows them to monitor your network traffic.
Yeah.
Or how about this
Good point.
DEJ915 says, as long as you don't have personal information on it, you can always reload a gaming PC without too much issue. That could be a point. Say they literally just, install a local account, install Steam. If it gets exploited or whatever, just reinstall Windows 10.
So kind of like a Steam Deck, or like a single purpose type
Oh.
device.
That's a good idea. Somebody should make one of those.
But I mean, it's still running Windows. Yeah.
I don't know. I think Elena has a great point. Is that really an actual case? Is
I mean,
anybody gonna do it?
people are at least alluding that yes, that is what they do. So
The thing is that people are also saying in the chat right now, they say, well, you can run Discord in a browser. I'm not talking about if you're using an app or not, because the browser is an app, right? So there is potential to exploit that app.
also, yeah.
Well, and like Firefox and Chrome are going to stop getting updates for Windows 10 versions at some point.
They
right?
will. They will also dump it overboard at some point.
Sure.
Yeah, but like, I guess my question is this going to be like when I first got broadband, I hooked a Windows 2000 machine up to the raw internet as my router,
Pour
which was
one
a
out for
thing
that
that seemed like a good
podcast.
idea at the time. And then immediately, within 2 weeks, I got a nasty gram from the ISP that was like, "Yo, if you don't stop doing this, we're going to turn off your internet." Okay. because the machine, every time I would clean off the viruses, it would get hacked within like 10 minutes in 2000.
Yep.
Because there were so many port scanners looking for raw, unpatched Windows 2000 installs on the internet. Now,
Yep.
it's not going to be that bad because we're all living behind NATs these days, right? Like we're all on routers that have private IP addresses, and it's not like it's going to be Worm City, but it's going to be through browser exploits and installed applications and things like that, right?
So, Will, first of all, kudos for running routing and remote access services. Our RAS on Windows 2000 was kick-ass, my friend.
It was really good, except for you had to have a firewall, and you didn't really document that part real well at the time.
Sorry about that.
Like 90% of the way there, Mikey. It was really good.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's going to be, you're right. There's so much more protection out there because we're almost always behind a NAT or stateful packet inspection firewall. Even modems, like pure modems, oftentimes do that. So the landscape has changed a lot since then. But I still think these machines that are not going to get updates, it's going to be just going to be a field day for hackers come November, December, January. So if you're deciding that you're going to use a device like that and stick with Windows 10 after October, I would actually advise, and this is not like the yay fanboy Microsoft thing, either pay for the updates or get on Windows 11 or switch to Linux. Not Arch. Something easy.
What about Cashy? Is Cashy good?
Okay, actually, because I would say that there's a decent portion of our listeners who already use Linux regularly, are very familiar, and there's probably also a decent portion who don't. What would the actual distros be that you would recommend?
That's a tough question, honestly. That's a really tough question.
Why? Okay, why? Why do Linux users do this? Where you're like, okay, I am open to this. What should I do? And they're like, I don't know if I can really tell you. And you're like, why are you trying to get me to join your cult if you're not even willing to make it easy for me to join your... This doesn't make any sense.
Let me do it this way. Hey, Will.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Mikey?
What? I need to wear a shirt today. What should I wear? What's the best shirt?
I like the purple one with stripes.
You do. You like that one. Cool.
Yeah, I think that one looks great.
Is that the one
on
I
you.
like?
It really brings out the color in your beard.
Aw. But is that the one I like? Is that the best one?
That's a you question.
Right.
So I just went through this whole process a couple weeks ago, right? And I ended up I installed a couple of things with them. Like you can live boot and test out most Linux distros at this point. Right?
That's true. That's very true.
You install Ventoy, which is a software that basically gives you a boot menu for your USB boot drive, which I think has some security problems that Mikey's probably making a face about right now.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
But basically it makes a partition and you just dump all the install ISOs for whatever versions of Linux you want to try out. And you can put a Windows installer on there too if you want. And then when you boot off that thumb drive, it gives you a little pop-up menu that's like, hey, which installer do you want to go into?
Yep.
Very easy.
Okay.
And I tried a bunch of them. And then I chose the difficult one, and it's gone great so far.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, but as a rebuttal to all of this.
Yeah.
It is not hard if somebody says, hey, what should I wear today? And hearing that question as, I have no idea what to do with my life right now, but I likely have preferences. And you as the person getting this question go, okay, are we in a casual day mood or are we in a formal day mood? And then you just narrow it from there.
Yeah.
Look, you're like, this is like buying a car, right? It's like...
Is it?
Do you want
that seems like a
reliable and boring? Do you want a Honda or do you want do you want something that's like
questions.
A mid-engine European sports car that you have to pull the engine out to change the oil? Like where are you what's the amount of fiddling you want to do with this? Like there's Mint.
Okay, but this is a disingenuous line of talk though, because when somebody comes to you and says, I've never used hold on, I want to just talk to the audience now. If somebody is coming to you to say, I've never used Linux before, what should I do? You don't go, hey, do you want the car that requires constant oil changes? Like, why would you do that if someone comes to you and like, I want a car that I don't have to think about ever? You would immediately mentally narrow it to like, okay, you're probably just gonna want a Toyota or a Honda.
Listen, Elena, you just want to pick the distro that's right for you. That's the real answer.
This is why Linux will never win.
Yeah, actually, it is.
You're just locked in. Your brain is not able to deal with this level of choice anymore. Is the thing you've been programmed.
Oh, God.
There's only two sides.
Oh man.
You don't know how to get people hooked on drugs, apparently.
I'm just gonna set it up on your laptop. You can try the first one. It's free. You're gonna have a good time.
Ooh. Well, listen. I figured everything out because all I did was I hit the Copilot key on my laptop just now,
Nice.
and I said,
that's great.
"Hey, I only use Windows. Which Linux should I use?" And they gave me three OSs that might be the fit the bill. Zorin OS. This one's particularly tailor-made for people coming from Windows. Lint Minix Cinnamon Edition, a polished and stable option with a desktop environment that's intuitive. And Kubuntu uses
let's Lint Minix. You mean Mint Linux?
Yeah.
Did I say Mint Linux?
You said Lint Minix.
Lint Minix. Oh man, that's my distro. I'm gonna start a distro. Mint,
I wanted to make sure that was an Adam mistake and not a Copilot mistake. I'm sorry.
Lint Minix.
That would be great, though, if it
That
worked.
would be interesting. Yeah, no. And Kubuntu
I
uses the
love it.
KDE Plasma desktop, which is clean and sleek,
that's
arguably
true.
closer to a Windows aesthetic than most other Linux flavors.
Maybe more than Windows 11.
How do you agree with this Copilot assessment?
I'll directly answer Elena's question. If I had no other data other than I want to go from Windows 10 to Linux, and I have not a lot of experience with Linux, I would go with Mint. I'd go with
I
cinnamon.
mean lint.
Lint. I'd go with lint. I like lint. I love lint. I love juice too, but more lint. Because it's easy, it's straightforward. It feels a lot like Windows. The learning curve is very shallow.
Okay.
It deals with updates on its own. It's relatively compatible. And if
I
don't
heard
go
you
with
should
something else.
only update through the command line.
Is that the?
I saw it on the internet. Somebody said that.
Is it in the internet or was one of your interviewees?
No. It was what sudo. What was the? Oh man, now I can't remember the APT get. Yeah. That you should only get.
That's not
install from the
Linux
command
Mint
line.
actually has a little pop up that says there's updates available. Do you want to do that? And you say yes.
Very Windows-like.
Which one
Yeah.
did you try? I don't remember.
I actually the last time I genuinely gave it a shot on desktop, I don't even remember what it was. It might have been Ubuntu.
Well, what was the one you ranted about a couple months ago?
Oh, that was a Pi-hole thing, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I was doing stuff off
Raspberry
of
Pi.
Raspbian or Raspberry Pi OS now
okay.
is what it's called. So
Yeah.
that's like its own like fork and it's simplified. And I wouldn't consider that. I mean, you can use it. It's fine. It's very. I mean, for anyone
lightweight.
it's very lightweight, and for anyone who's even moderately technically savvy, it's very easy to navigate. But even then, I don't think I would recommend it for like my parents or my less tech savvy friends because I mean I was still having to get packages through the command line and stuff like that. So yeah.
The thing that really struck me, having taken my first steps back into desktop Linux for the first time in a decade or so, is that everything is without like Windows and Mac OS kind of hold your hand and make things easy for you, and they do things like put your profile folders in OneDrive by default. So if your computer breaks, then your stuff is backed up for you. And
Thank you.
They do things
Adam's
like
face.
not let you break the package installer for the OS, right?
Yeah.
And like you can make choices that will jack up your machine. And the difference between stuff like Cache and Arch and Slackware and your ancient Gentus and Mint and Manjaro and to a lesser extent, I think these days Ubuntu, are that they protect you from those. They'll at least pop up an error that says, "Hey, this is a bad idea. You shouldn't do this, dog."
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I need those errors. I need hand holding for sure.
Kali will let you destroy it halfway. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
at will. I mean, you could just literally, I could type in one command.
That's what you're running. Call
Yeah,
me.
Kali. I dual boot this machine because it does hacking. But yeah,
Gentoo will let you compile your OS for an architecture that's not installed in that machine.
You know what though?
that's fantastic.
I mean, here's the
Yeah.
thing though. Speaking from just a nerd point of view, I do kind of miss the days of Windows, early days, where you could basically have the operating system eat itself by accident. Because that was is the fastest
boot
way
drive.
to learn.
Yeah.
It was. Blow stuff up. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
DEL at space asterisk.
Here's a good
slash
question
Y.
that I'm going to expand off of. Friend of the show, PS1 Freak asks, what Linux to use if I just want to click things instead of using the command line? Like, is there any of them that you can just never touch the command line?
Yeah, a lot.
Oh, okay.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
Cinnamon.
Pop.
Mint cinnamon.
Can we
Yeah.
actually talk about these flavor profiles? Like I'm just saying, what distinguishes just plain mint versus the mint cinnamon? Like
I
to me,
didn't expect that.
this is like different flavors of toothpaste, right? So like, what is one whitening and one like normal?
Am I at a grocery outlet?
I want the professional one.
Also, I would hate to get the sour edition because I hate sour stuff. So I
You're
wouldn't.
allergic.
Yeah, I wouldn't install that one. But what if that's the one for me? You know.
Reminds me of the old days of Android with the releases like
Oh,
Marshmallow
yeah,
and Kit Kat.
yeah.
Those are great. I miss the code names.
I
That
do
was
too.
good.
Friend of the show, Brendan, says that there's a Justin Bieber and Hannah Montana Linux.
Okay, now I'm in. All
Now you're
right, I'm going to compile it right now.
Who doesn't
Easy.
love the Beeb?
Done.
The beat.
The big thing I think when you're choosing something is to pick something that's an LTS version, which means long-term support. Assuming the platform you're doing, like you don't want the bleeding edge. Beta in Linux means something different than what you're accustomed to as a Windows user.
Good point.
So you want the version that is like the long-term support version. I think Ubuntu is what, like 5 years or something now. I can't remember. But you want like is it every fourth version or every other year they do a long-term support version that lasts a lot longer than the kind of interim versions, and that prevents you from having to do a system upgrade until you're ready.
So I want the nightly build, is what you're saying.
Yeah, nightly build.
Yeah,
There you
do
go.
that.
Look, I actually that was a genuine question on my part though. Like, what is the difference between mint and mint cinnamon?
Really?
Yeah.
Cinnamon is a flavor. Or
Linux.
you started this.
Linux.
You started it. Cinnamon is a version.
Right, but
Mint is the distro.
But what changes?
What
Yeah.
distinguishes it from like the
Is it just
standard?
a visual
Just a
thing?
name.
Or?
It's just a name.
No, nothing. Nothing.
No feature changes. No.
It's like saying Windows 10 22H2 or Windows 11 23H1.
Oh, so it's
Or
the most
or Home and Pro
recent?
is maybe the
Yeah.
better analogy.
Yeah,
Okay, I
but
could
that's
go with
still
that.
a feature difference. Oh my God, Linux people, that's still a feature
That's still a
difference.
feature difference,
What
yeah.
are the feature differences?
And it doesn't look any different.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a
well-
side-by-side Linux comparison guy, so you might not be asking the right
Oh,
person.
okay. Thank you,
You
chat. I
like
appreciate you.
What'd
So
they
we
say?
have Brandon in chat saying Cinnamon is a desktop environment and it's so much nicer.
Oh, okay.
Well, what makes a
So, like
desktop
Plasma.
version laptop?
Got it.
So it's like the Windows shell, like the UI for Windows and Windows 10 and Windows 11 are different, right? It's the same idea as that. It's like the one uses KDE Plasma probably, and one uses GNOME or something like that. There's a million differences.
Yeah.
The thing you want is something that uses KDE Plasma if you're running on reasonably modern machines.
yeah, but Windows 11 Home on the desktop and the laptop are the same, right? Why would
Well,
they
but
be
Home
the
and Pro are
I
different.
think what's happening for you is that you're using the same words and thinking they apply the same way in this, but they're actually, I think the idea is desktop environment is a different like concept.
Oh, they
for
don't mean
Linux.
laptop versus desktop.
Correct.
They mean like
No,
desktop
we're
versus
talking
server.
about the
No,
thing that
no,
draws
no.
Windows on your screen.
The environment, the actual interface itself.
Oh,
You can in Linux, you could just swap that out. Not,
Yeah.
I don't want to trivialize it. It's not like click one button, but you can install a different desktop environment. It would be like, I want this to look exactly like Mac OS, even though it's running Windows. You click a couple of buttons, you reboot. Oh, look, it's running. It looks like Mac OS. Everything is Mac OS. You got that garbage on the bottom. You got the garbage on the sides. It's just like the clown.
You got the garbage on the
interface that
bottom
you're
too?
used to. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it's but and Linux is great about that. That is a huge benefit to Linux for folks that are power users and want to be able to change out their environment, like what we're talking about. Will saying Plasma or KDE or GNOME or there's a bunch of them.
Okay.
It's a kick-ass. if
Adam
you're
has
into
his
it.
head in his hand right now, and I think this is funny. So
just when I think I know.
I
don't know
actually,
anything.
so I'm preparing to put Linux on one of my older laptops because I want to try this for the website. And I was telling these guys the other day that as part of this, I have started a crime scene post-it wall because I am trying to figure out how all these terms relate. And I can't do this just digitally. My brain is still very analog. And so I'm like, okay, like these are the distros, these are branching out from that, these are the add-ons, like, because I can't do it otherwise. I need a visual, and I'm hoping that by the time I figure this out, the post-it stickiness has not faded, so I can just get a picture of this for my article on the website. It's backwards.
Oh, is it backwards?
Yeah, it's backwards for
Will has to sign up that says Linux user.
Classic. Yeah, just to put it backwards.
Nailed it.
Okay, all right. We need to move on.
Do we?
But
we?
hey,
This is great.
Hey, you know
this
what?
is public service.
You know what? Maybe I have an idea. What
Yeah.
if we start a podcast?
I think this is a great
The
idea.
full Linux.
Yeah, where we just talk about Linux.
We will have the full stomach, the full Linux. What else? The half
Yeah.
nerd,
Yeah.
half Linux.
Well, I'm barely Linux right now, but yeah. Just is anybody interested in a Linux podcast?
I would do a Linux podcast.
Ask the internet.
Let's
I would
see.
listen to that.
You know what? Let's start a poll.
All right.
Would you listen to us catalog our Linux adventures?
As a serious thing, though.
Oh no, I'm being serious.
No, as a serious thing, I think one of our half nerd episodes could be talking about our transition.
Well, I'm going to rebrand half
experience.
nerds what they are. So
What?
Yeah. Sorry.
I love that.
They're going to be
term.
half
Three
week.
quarters nerd.
It'll be like on Fridays if we did like a Friday
On
like casual
Fridays, we wear
stream. It's like
black.
half. Well, no, it's like halfway between the other full nerds. So, because it used to denote how many people were there.
I did love that.
So instead
but
of
also an implication of like which two
True,
of the quad you were getting.
the
Do
full
you cut them
penguin.
vertically or horizontally? The nerds.
Well, we were in a. If you had a layout of a 4-grid,
okay.
it would depend on where we were that week.
Actually, was it only? Should we only do that in the pandemic? Was that only remote?
No, we
No,
did
we
them
did some-
here.
we did
No,
some
because we
here.
talked
Okay.
about, because I remember sitting at that, because you'd be in the producer's chair, I would be sitting there. And then
full
there was the
distro.
one time we were talking about Star Trek the Motion Picture.
yeah.
And I
boy.
remember this specifically because I was looking at the episode after, and I was looking at the auto captions. And the auto captions wrote something very different than when I said the word campiness.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I
not
assumed
good.
when you're talking about Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Gordon was like,
No, he
running
wasn't
down- it
there.
was like a
That's
Tom
why we were
Cruise
talking
running
about
from
it.
wherever
No,
he
we were
was to get
talking
there
about it
time.
because specifically he wasn't
He
there. That
wasn't
was
there,
the
yeah.
joy of having half nerd episodes. We could talk about consoles, or we could talk about Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
So that still applies. It's just like
How
so
good
it's
Alien
more
is.
like a chill Friday episode, where we just talk about whatever we want to talk about.
Friday.
But it's halfway between because it's on Fridays. Anyway,
Friday.
there's already people who are in the
We can talk about food.
the vote. Yeah. In the vote saying no. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right,
People say no?
we'll see. Yeah.
Oh, bummer.
It's 85% yes right now.
No,
on
I
my
know,
screen.
but it is funny that there is a percentage of
Willis, I
people who are
love
like,
this.
I would never
No,
listen
thank
to
you.
this podcast. No, thank you.
Yeah, just asked if why didn't I put a 1080 Ti? But I was like, this is a serious poll.
Yeah, this is a serious poll. I would be
We will
willing
talk
to
legally
about
binding.
we will talk about the 1080 Ti during one of
and
the
names
half nerds.
the names have been pretty good. The full distro, the full penguin. I like some of these names too. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we got to move on.
Do we?
Because we're about to be hacked. And luckily,
Are we?
luckily we're here with Mikey and you got to tell me, man, what should I be worried about? I feel like every day I open up my MSN.com and it tells me like, oh, new exploit over here for your router. Oh, there's been a new attack over here on your banking system. Update your passwords now. It's just it's left and right, man. It's
Yeah.
left and right. What are these new scams? And I heard AI is going to scrape our voices off the internet and then call our family, using our language model of our voices and socially engineer them. What's going on? You've got your hand on the pulse of what's going on with scams.
Did you
what's the
invite
newest scams, man?
Somebody else?
No,
What,
yeah.
what the hell?
What, you don't keep up to date?
I do actually.
You do.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm very familiar. And so,
What are the new things people need to worry for?
yeah, this is the segue part, right? This is where we
Yeah,
segue.
we're already in there.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
Yeah, we're already
Excellent.
deep in, man.
I'm on cue. You gotta, scams are as old as,
Apple
society,
pie.
I guess.
No.
They go back many,
Even
many,
before
many
Apple
years.
Pie?
Even before,
okay.
probably before Apple Pie. Because people like to have things other people have, and they're disgusting sometimes. So scams are definitely always prevalent, and there's upticks and downticks, but scamming the internet has really changed how scamming works, I think. Made it easier for scammers to reach out to victims, more efficient for them to do, less likely that a scammer will get actually in trouble with the law or get caught in any way by using things like voice changers, by using things like voice impersonation, using internet tools they're commonly used for white hat or normal legit purposes. Scammers are always there, and the internet just makes it so much easier for them. It's really frustrating. I'm kind of tuned into this space, familiar with a lot of these techniques and tactics and lots of stuff. And the frustrating bit for me, and I don't want to get too far ahead, is scams are relatively easy to prevent being victims of if you're super duper cautious and if you're aware of them. But most people aren't. Most people are kind, trusting souls. That's just how it is. People, if I call you and say, hey, I'm broken down and I need some money for something, you're going to trust
I
that.
wouldn't tell you no.
Right.
That would be rude. I got to send you some money.
Yeah.
That's
So
how social engineering works.
Hey man, look, I'm kidnapped, okay, and here's my Bitcoin wallet. If you can send me like 30 Bitcoin, that would be great.
yeah, sadly that works. And it works on smart people because smart people are also kind and giving and nice in many cases. Dumb people, kind, giving.
Did you say dumb people?
I said dumb people. Yes. Is that not the politically correct word for that?
I mean, I wasn't going for that angle. I was just like, oh no, he said what normally is the quiet part, very loud.
The stupids versus the smarts. Would you like me to go that way?
But they all still had the same problems that they were trusting, and they were.
You were talking about trusting people regardless of how society
Smart or
might see their
stupid.
intellectual abilities.
Exactly. And everybody is a victim. And that's another frustrating bit about the internet is it empowers attackers to select their victims. They might call 100 folks and 4 or 5 people, kind of profess some knowledge or some skill. So they avoid those. They just hang up on those folks. So they don't bother checking in on a instant message or checking up on an email, following it up on an email. They choose the people that are the most likely to be prey. And that is extraordinarily frustrating and a little bit soul draining, to be honest, to see, people that are generally innocent or good people getting victimized. That's what I'm trying to get across. And I use harsh words because I have a lot of emotion around that. My parents have been scammed. My grandparents have been scammed, by these folks. And that unfortunately for me kind of makes me lash out a little bit. And I apologize if I don't do it in a very good way, but I get charged.
It's infuriating.
Yeah.
It's the injustice of it.
It
and
is.
to add on to what you're saying, I don't think it's just a matter of, how trusting or, giving you are as a person. I mean, we have a pretty high profile example of this. And to his credit, he talked about it immediately, made it educational. Troy Hunt. So person
we
who
were just
runs,
talking about that.
yeah, Troy Hunt runs Have I Been Pwned? I don't know how to pronounce it out loud, right?
You just said it
And
right.
then he talked about how he fell for a phishing scam for his mailing list. And he was so clear about it. And I looked at that and I was like, kudos to him for being so transparent about it, because it was such a great lesson to everybody else who thinks I'm too smart for this to happen to me. I have my 2-factor setup. I can't be, taken this way. But he pointed out very clearly that we are all human.
Yep.
And when you are tired or your routine is disrupted or something happens to your brain, your system can go haywire.
It can happen to anyone.
It can happen,
Absolutely.
and it literally can happen to anybody, even somebody who is so well known in the security space, right? And so that's why, the whole thing around security and scams is that my thing, and I don't know if I always communicate it well on the website, is that always set up fail safes for yourself so that when you are not at your best, you have a system that saves your butt.
Yep.
Right?
One of mine is just to wait. Because a lot of times
That's a big
I'll
one.
see something and it will try to get an immediate reaction of oh no, I'm locked out of this. Okay, that's got to be bad. And then I'm like, okay, wait for a second.
Waiting is a great one.
that helps me 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and obviously, Mikey, please, you're our guest today, so please speak more, because I can talk about this a lot too. But waiting's a good one. Mine is asking myself, how does this tie into my emotions, right? Like, this is maybe not to my credit, or maybe I've been in the security space too long, like even ancillary as I am. I unfortunately had a close friend die last month. And I found out because I was reached out to on Facebook by his parent. But my first thought was, is this a scam?
Yeah, this is a scam.
I need to check first. And so instead of immediately responding to this poor person who lost their child, I was going around contacting all my other associates. I was like, have you heard this? You know, like, do you know who their account is? And I'm in my head, I'm like, I can't say this word on the podcast. I'm such a jerk, you know, because instead of doing the human thing, I'm doing this. But unfortunately, the reality is right now, especially as someone who's kind of sort of public figure, I'm like, I think it's real, but also I don't want it to be real. So I'm just going to go about doing this just to confirm first. But like, that's the thing, like scammers prey on stuff like that. There was all the Facebook scams for a while that's like, oh my God, I can't believe they're gone, right? Because they were trying to get you to interact with them and see who could have passed away or something happened, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And scammers do or not always, but frequently instill a sense of urgency and a sense of emotion, whether it's a Publishers Clearinghouse scam. You've won Publishers Clearinghouse, and you have to claim this within 1 hour.
That's so old school.
It is, and it happens all the time, even today, right this second. I watch a lot of scam baiters on Twitch and YouTube. One in particular, her name's Meowthy, and she's great at just simply, I don't know how she attracts these folks, but she has a Google Voice number, and they constantly call her with, "You've won Publishers Clearinghouse. You've won." I mean,
Publishers
like
Clearinghouse is still a thing.
This huge.
Today I learned.
Yeah, but it's always a sense of urgency. You have to claim this within an hour, and we're going to need you to give us a money pack scratch card within it, or a vanilla Visa within an hour, or an Apple gift card. Apple gift card's kind of passé now, but it's always that sense of urgency, and it's always that sense, or frequently that sense of it's too good to be true. And if it's too good to be true, or
too bad to be true,
or too bad to be true, exactly.
Yeah.
And so stepping back and having patience and analyzing this and verifying this and not just taking someone's word for it. I mean, there's an awful lot of different scammers prey on emotions, not just tech. Let me take a step back. Most scams nowadays take advantage of technical and non-technical methods. It's a combination of, here's a technical thing that we can get you, like a link to install something, but also non-technical, preying on emotions. The passing of a loved one, or the joy of winning something. It's really awful. I mean, the worst stuff you can imagine these scammers do, because they feel like they're out of the realm of being held accountable. Many of them are overseas, and I'm not saying that in a nationalist way. If you're in country A, you have B, C, and D folks in different countries trying to scam you because they're not going to get in trouble. And same thing, every country has scammers that scam folks in other countries because it's very difficult to get prosecuted that way. So that's not a good country, bad country thing. It's hard to hold folks accountable, so they continue to do it. And it's very cheap. Google Voice is what, free? Isn't that about right? Yeah. Approximately free?
You sign up for a Gmail account or Google account, and as long as you have some kind of phone number that you can tie the Google Voice number to, then you can get it started. But if you're using like a cheap phone or a burner phone just to get that started and established, then...
Can you tie it to another Google Voice number?
I've tried.
No.
I think in the old days when they first started the service, you could, but that's what I mean. Like these companies are aware of how their services are used for ill, so they are iterating. And I think, again, Mikey, I know like I'm just kind of randomly shooting stuff in the dark here, so please take the reins as necessary. But another thing that I've noticed is that with how much things are getting accelerated in terms of technology, rules, guidelines that we used to go by are changing constantly. And I think that's another thing people aren't aware of as much, because before we could basically give a piece of advice and it was like set and forget. Like you would just always know not to click on a link, or always put your mouse over a link to check the URL, and like all these other little tips. But I think the thing that's been hard for me educating people is that saying like all those things we told you even 5 years ago aren't as applicable anymore. And here's the new guidelines. And it's so complicated. And this is also kind of why I have a little bit of empathy for Microsoft saying, like, we just want to get everyone off of Windows 10. Because when you start facing all these super complicated things, it is just easier to get people into a system where they don't actually have to think about it, because it gets to a point where people get overloaded and they won't do anything anymore because it's too much too many guidelines, too many rules that they have to follow or remember, or that it's constantly changing, because they just want to know, I should never click a link. I should always click this link. I should never take a phone call. I should always call directly. And so, like, I've started defaulting to saying things like, just contact people directly. You get an email about your account, log in a separate browser tab. If you're feeling paranoid, use a whole different browser.
Yep.
Use a whole different machine. If you get a phone call, and people have changed companies have changed their behaviors too. I don't get phone calls anymore about fraudulent account activity. I get a secure message through through the online portal. Right? Because that they can control that more than they can control how easy it is for someone to imitate a phone call, right?
Yeah.
So, like, these things are constantly changing. And so trying to get word out that the only thing you can count on now is that it's going to be different is such a hard message.
It is.
And so I'm actually curious, Mikey, like, how you're finding, like, better ways to inform the public, given that this is the changing landscape, or that the landscape is just constantly changing now at such an accelerated rate.
Changing landscape is, or communicating is the most important thing we could do. For the tech folks that typically, Adam tells me, pretty hardcore tech folks watch this content, consume this content, generally speaking. And so the best thing you can do is have the conversation with people that you think might be susceptible to scam, which is most people at some point or another. And instill a healthy dose of skepticism about, do not click random things. Do not trust that Facebook Messenger is more secure than iMessage, is more secure than WhatsApp, is more secure than Signal, is more secure than text. It's all the same. Healthy dose of skepticism should actually kind of pervade everything. And also, don't be afraid to ask. I instilled this in my mom repeatedly. If there's a question about whether this is a scam, ask me, ask one of, the other folks, look at that or ignore it. I'd rather have you ignore this fake message. If it's your bank, they'll call you again. If it's your credit card, they'll contact you through mail. If Publishers Clearinghouse is really giving you $10 million, they'll show up with that prize van with the balloons and the model and the guy in the suit. You know what I'm talking about. Will knows what I'm talking about.
will be there, baby. Yeah, they're going to dig him up.
So that healthy skepticism is probably the best thing that we can instill. And to communicate it, we just have to communicate. We just have to have that conversation.
Are there best practices? Oh, sorry, Elena. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I've been talking a lot.
Are there best practices that can protect you from stuff like this, Mikey?
No. I mean, I guess yes. It's a hard one. We all have online profiles, or not even online profiles. We all have exposure in some way. Most of us have email addresses or phone numbers. It's 2025. Most folks, that have any kind of connectivity at all have some amount of access. And scammers will do things like dial through a PBX, dial through a range of phone numbers looking for people, or they'll send bulk text messages to blocks of phone numbers. So they'll find you. There's no way to really the ways to minimize exposure, I think, are minimize your online profile, minimize how much of your data is actually out there. But don't expect that that's a full control. Expect to be scammed. Expect folks to text you or call you, and expect it in pretty much any vector. The only vector that I don't really see happening as far as scammers is, or at least in a big way, is physical presence. Like right in your face in the same place at the same time, because it's too easy to get caught.
Actually, I did get scammed in the last couple months, and it was a physical one.
I want to hear about this
now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be very specific to us. Somebody showed up at the apartment being like, "Oh, hey, do you you have PG&E, right?" I was like, yeah, well, that's who provides our power. Yeah, you know about this too. Yeah. And they were like, oh, hey, do you have access to your bill? Can you look real quick to see who provides the the gas line. Was it gas specifically? I can't remember. And they were like,
Oh.
yeah, because just so you know, PG&E,
Like who's the gas or electricity provider or whatever.
yeah, like because PG&E will constantly be swapping between different providers, you know, and then charging you different rates. And they were like, we're out here trying to help people to lock you in the lowest rate. So sign up to this service to, you know, get the lowest gas provider, you know, because PG&E will constantly swap it, and you know, one day you'll be paying $2 whatever, and the next day it's 50 cents, but we'll lock you in this low rate. And the lady like was nice, and sure enough, you know, I got a certain distance, and even Lindsay came up behind me, and she's like, "What is this?" And like, and I was like, "It's fine. You know, nobody shows up." Like, so it was it worked for a couple reasons for me. Because people don't usually show up. Yeah. So I was like, if they're showing up, then you know it probably means something. Number two, she commented. Well, she saw the cat scratcher, and she was like, "Oh, I have a cat. She just barely passed away, and this is close to when you know, and my cat passed away." Wow. And so I was just like, "Yeah." So Lindsay, she's in the chat. She saved the day. Luckily, I had a feeling in my gut too, because she was like, "Oh, sign up for this account." I signed up for the account. She's like, "I'm going to send you an email. Just hit the authentication on the email on your phone." Which I've learned, like, this is not like a scam that was gonna like it was a monetary thing. It probably would have screwed me monetarily, not like I was like giving my social security number or anything. But before I hit the email, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna search this real quick. What was the name of your company real quick? And I searched the company, and the top hit was just a ton of Reddit posts being like, hey, do not sign up for this. And so I stopped and I asked her, I was like, oh, hey, I just did a quick Google search. Like, why are there a bunch of Reddit threads saying? So
was that when she was running by then? She was already gone?
No. Her answer was hilarious, because I was like, oh, why are there a bunch of Reddit threads?
Subcontractor. She said she was a subcontractor.
No. Even worse than that.
Damn.
She was like,
she's just working on the Death Star, man. She's not a part of it.
I was like, why does it say there's a bunch of Reddit companies or Reddit threads saying that this is a scam? And she's like, I don't know. You shouldn't go on Reddit. That's what she said.
Good advice.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I'll sign up for this later. Thank you. But she knew. She knew.
I had similar experience as well. So probably from the same people, came up to our apartment, but I didn't get the same sales pitch. But this person was in a hurry, because all they said was, hey, I'm associated with so PG&E. That's all I heard. I heard PG&E, and say but they said this, can I see your bill, please? I'm like,
which they said, said that to me too.
But they said that immediately, they without any other casual conversation. Okay. So then that rang, that alerted me, and then I was like, no, I shouldn't be providing you this information. Sorry, and there's no. And I just told them outright, no soliciting in this building. So sorry. Have a good day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I
cool.
find this so fascinating, because I think of all of us, I don't know Mikey's background, but I grew up in San Francisco, and so my wariness meter is set very high. Good. And so it's always fascinating to hear about like people who are like, oh, you came to my door, you're talking to me, you're a human. Because I remember one time where someone was in my building, and our whole building was like, how'd you get in? Who are you? Wow. What are you doing here? Get out. We're going to call the cops. And like, they were, and to their not credit, but like, I would admire this, like in the face of all this hostility, they were smiling, and they're like, we just want to help you sign up for like this like cheap cell phone service. We're like, get out.
Well, my question, Mikey, is like, why? Like, I get dozens of spam texts and phone calls a day.
I'm sorry, I just barely noticed the Brad.
Have you not noticed? He's been doing this the whole show. For audio listeners, so in the beginning, I think it was the pre-show or right after we did the intro, he just did a whole picture that we used last week he did an overlay over his own face, and I was cracking up on the side. And then this whole time he's just been doing like just little overlays, and right now there's just a small little face of
Brad
Brad's
in the
face
corner,
right
over Mario.
Over Mario
I think Brad, are you listening? I think you would love this.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Anyway,
but I didn't realize that studio mode doesn't work on virtual camera on OBS. Just FYI, so good to know.
So you're doing it in real time.
Yeah, so I was doing it live.
Yeah.
But no, like, why are phones so like? Why are there so many? why do I get messages on my phone sometimes that say this is like a verified user, this is not a verified user? Why do I get spam from both kinds of users on my phone? Why are phones and texts so kind of leaky and open to this kind of manipulation? It seems like this should be a closed system that the telephone providers just limit access to.
That's easy. That's a couple of easy answers. Why do we rob banks, Butch?
Because there's money there?
Because that's where the money is. That's where they keep the money. So, I mean, that's why folks target phones. That's why scammers target phones.
Because everyone has one?
Because everybody has one. Or everybody that they care about, that has enough money to have a phone. It's very low common denominator, low-hanging fruit. So absolutely, that paints a target. Why do you
I guess there's a fixed set of numbers too, right? So they can just start at 1 and go up from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, there are finite set. They can certainly buy blocks of numbers and try those. But Will, the answer to the question about why some show is like verified or unverified or have some lookup or anything like that, a lot of times those phone numbers are very spoofable. The phone system in most countries does not a very good job, if sometimes not at all, of verifying that the message actually originated. It's more of an assertion. When you send a text message, in many scenarios, it's an the from number is simply an assertion in that message. No verification, no validation, nothing like that. That's why you might get a link to some random site. When you reply to the text message, you get like, hey, sorry, this phone number doesn't accept text messages, or this couldn't be delivered. There's all kinds of different methods that attackers use.
But when I get a text message from somebody that says, "Hey, you have unpaid bridge tolls," and it's coming from some human trafficking farm in Malaysia,
right?
And the link goes out to a Vietnamese website. What is the how is this not a closed? How is the text message network not a closed network at this point, right? Like how I understand that email was set up to be open, and there's some inherent vulnerabilities there in that we don't have a network that there's no central authority for, hey, this computer is allowed to send an email and this computer is not. The text message stuff and the phone service should be centrally moderated authorities, right?
Oh
Wait,
you gotta do the thing. You gotta do the thing. You gotta do the thing.
Come here. They should.
They sure should. Yeah.
But
that would be great. That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, there's like a fixed number of phone numbers.
But is it?
Isn't this this seems like an easy problem to solve to me?
But is it a technical issue as well? It does seem because when we talk about things like SIM jacking, the system is not equipped to actually block that kind of attack right now. And people can actually steal your text messages from air. They can just have it redirected elsewhere because the system allows for it. So, I mean, I imagine, among other things, it's very expensive to change the system. But how difficult is it technically to change the system as it's constructed, Mikey?
So carriers, I don't want to demonize carriers. They have an investment in the existing infrastructure. And so unless it's mandatory, they're not really compelled to make significant changes. And does that mean, I don't want to go full activist on this or anything like that, because that's not who I am. But I will say that, without a holistic change, and that would have to be international, because you can internationally text. And even if that happens, then an attacker would simply move to a platform that cares less about that, like, a different messaging platform instead of SMS. And I'm not saying that any of these are particularly more or less vulnerable, but they would move to WhatsApp, or they would move to Facebook Messenger, or they would move to a platform where you can message someone directly with an email instead of a phone number.
So even if they lock down that method, it does to a certain degree, it doesn't matter. They're just going to migrate and use something
It'll just pivot. Right. Pivot. It'll absolutely pivot. I get WhatsApp. I run WhatsApp, and I get phishing email or phishing messages frequently.
I mean, it's not different than people on Instagram saying hey, would you like to buy these quality luxury purses?
No, I get the ones don't you want more followers? Your follower.
No.
Hey, Alice, are you going to be at lunch today?
Yeah.
Well, also
I
love these ones, these group messages. Here's one I pulled up from Amazon refund update. Dear value customer, thank you for being part of the Amazon family.
Yeah.
And then the number has left the group.
The number.
That's fantastic.
And I'm also like,
I love
wait,
it.
you're trying to get back to me. Also, why is that a group message?
Yeah.
That doesn't-
So we're still talking
Riley here.
Oh.
There are 2025 PPO plans with 0 deductible, 0% copays, and dental and vision. Can I send you a quote? Y/N. That's the worst school note I've ever received.
My favorite are the job ones where they're like, "Hey, I've got some opportunities for you," but it's always funny because mine are like for doctors, and
Sure.
I'm like, I am nowhere near the medical field, dude.
Look, if they hire you, you're a doctor, Elena. That's the rule.
Oh, cool.
Maybe slightly tangential, so we can bring it back to like more directly on scams. But I was kind of curious, since we're talking about things like vulnerabilities in systems, like how they're constructed, DNS.
Yeah.
That is a system that actually, as I understand it, is actually very vulnerable to like redirects, but no one seems to be doing that. I've always wondered why.
You mean the domain name system?
Yeah.
Service.
And that's the show. Thank you, folks. Thanks for
Oh,
coming.
so close. I was so close.
Patty had him on the shoulder.
Dang it. Oh, thought I was being smart there.
DNS is probably the most fragile part of the internet.
Right. That's why I've always wondered why no one's actually ever attacked it and like actually used it to create mayhem.
You have a very small number of very hardcore nerds and that are protecting it actively. And when I say hardcore nerd, that's a lot, because I don't say that about many people, right?
No, I understand what you mean.
So yeah, I mean, like the Megatron of nerds. I mean, just all the nerds combined, and those people do a lot of direct hand-based management of it. They take care of it. They protect it. All of that stuff, like directly by hand. John Postel and Vince Cerf, kind of being the early runners of the internet, or early forefathers of the internet, they actually identified this. Postel in particular talked a lot about there's this enormous amount of risk with the namespace, with DNS. And so he architected a lot of solutions. Unfortunately, a lot of the things he did to protect it kind of went by the wayside because of political views, because of egos, because of all that stuff. And I don't want to drag you through all of that. But you're absolutely right. DNS is certainly the weak spot in a lot of defense, and it does get compromised sometimes. In fact, there was an exploit, not an exploit. It was theoretically called a mistake, where there was a government, a different country government, who actually made some changes to DNS and advertised those changes to DNS, and all internet traffic started routing through that one country for about, I think it was 15 or 20 minutes.
Cool.
And no matter where it was going, I was going from here to there, my traffic went through this country. It didn't matter. For about 15 minutes, and that was a DNS. It was a mistake. I'll take them at face value. It was a mistake, a configuration mistake. But could that have also been an exploit? Could that have also been an attack, an intentional thing? Sure. So yeah, we do live on the fragility of DNS.
Yeah, because I've wondered about that. Because the way this for me, ties into scams is I've always wondered, like, at what point would we have to worry about? Because one of the things I tell people are like, okay, like if you're going to say like Target or Amazon, like one of these major sites, you're going to be on the official site because you type in target.com, you know that you haven't typoed it, whatever. But with something like this, if you were to engineer the back end of it, it could redirect all that legitimate traffic, right?
Yep.
And so it's like, well, how come it doesn't happen? Like, I'm sure there's something going on in the background, right? And I've always wondered why, because it seems like it would be sort of an easy thing to do, but it doesn't happen.
So if you owned target.com, you would do all kinds of different things to make sure that no one could change target.com's DNS entries. Mm-hmm. You would have your name, email address, and phone number in the record. You would have protections that monitor, or systems that would monitor your DNS resolution. And the moment it didn't resolve to the IP address you thought it should, you get notification, and your ISP gets notification. And yeah, there's all kinds of engineering. That doesn't mean an attacker couldn't try to take it over, and they could be successful for a very short amount of time, potentially. But there's all kinds of I guess the right word is out of band checks against that. Like,
oh, it should be doing this. It's not doing this anymore. We need to alert.
Right. Okay. Or even I have to talk to somebody. I have to speak to someone.
Like in order to do this, you need to do this.
Yep.
More complicated step.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay. So then it is a bit, I guess it would be for now still that it is an okay kind of guideline to give people, saying like if you're going to these very big corporation type sites, that they're going to have the resources to protect things so that you are going to end up still on these official sites.
I don't want to give anybody blind trust.
No, but
that's a good practice. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thanks.
There are teams of people at big companies that do this work, right?
Oh yeah. Hardcore. Hardcore nerds. I mean, hardcore. Let me tell you a little bit about. No, I'm not going to do that.
So I guess my question,
Like utility kilt wearers? Is that what you're saying?
Hey.
You know,
I've always wanted a
utility-kilts,
utilikilt.
they are very practical. I just don't know.
Cargo kilts, man.
Utility kilts? Are we talking about utility kilts?
Yeah.
That's what I thought we were.
Yeah, they are practical.
I just think that they could use better colorways. That's all.
Oh,
More attractive ones. If you're gonna go for it, go for the fashion angle.
Yeah.
I want olive.
It's the
olive or
pleated-
khaki. There's only 2 colors.
It's the pleatedness that I don't like. I just don't like
But that's what a
pleated.
kilt is. Anyway,
I know,
so I guess kind of circling back a bit then, if we have so many hardcore nerds on this, why aren't the telecos investing the same way into the SMS systems to protect them? Is it just because it's a technical difference in how you can protect it?
So I don't know if you're going to remember this. The SMS messaging is, well, you know that it's based on, phone number, sender and receiver phone number, right? And so I'm not trying to lecture you on things you already know, just kind of setting foundation. The identity of the phone number, the sender in particular, is very important because that's what would potentially prevent fraud. That number is actually an artifact of something that used to be called caller ID. And Will probably just had like a cringe moment because Will almost certainly remembers.
I remember a time before when you just pick up the phone and you'd be like, "Hello, who is this?"
Exactly.
And then they'd say their name, and then you'd say,
Back in my day.
"Look, you used to have a script. Your mom taught you a script, and she's like, "Hello, this is the Smith residence. May I ask who's calling?" And then they'd say, "Yeah, it's the man. I'm here to talk to your dad." And then you'd hand it to the dad.
The man.
And the caller ID was always because it's an add-on to existing phone systems. It's an add-on to the existing architecture. It was basically just a prefix. When you were calling a number, the system started adding that little prefix. And then SMS
was it just some beeps and boops? Is that how they sent that data?
Yeah, actually it is.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's dual tone multi-frequency way back in the day. It's probably digital now. And then SMS really comes around with, hey, can we fill the space in between, what we're sending, these keep alive packets that we send to phones all the time? Can we put data in that? We're just sending like a ping. Can we put a little bit of data in the ping just to tell somebody they have a message? That's where SMS comes from. It's a keep alive message that just now they're filling with a little bit of data because they don't have to add any extra overhead or capacity to send that message. That's why sometimes SMS takes a little bit of extra time. That's why back in the day you didn't have any validation of connection or delivery because it was very much like a UDP, like a one-way, just go send it out and hopefully it gets received.
Yeah.
And SMS pretty much works exactly the same way now. It's not going to change. And so many people, so many organizations have implementations and adoptions that I don't think SMS itself is going to change like ever. I think we might move to something else.
It's like a foundational protocol at this point.
Exactly.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so. So it's kind of like because it was not built from the bottom up to be this way, it just has certain vulnerabilities to it that can't necessarily be guarded. Whereas it sounds like when you're talking about the DNS stuff, that like when it was being conceptualized, they were aware of some of the vulnerabilities to the system, so they could also kind of plan around for that.
Yep. And they just chose instead of technical controls, more non-technical controls.
Okay.
So then to that end, to like in the one of the things that my kid's doctor used to do when she was little was she would end every visit with like, here are the 3 things that kill most kids this age.
Oy vey.
And we asked why she did it.
That's harsh.
Well, no, but she was like, look, here's the thing. I do this because most people just worry about nonsense that's not actually dangerous. And here are the things that are actually a problem, that are actually a statistically significant problem for your kid. So like with that framing, like, should I be installing like the SMS anti-spam stuff that my phone provider gives? Should I be running that on my phone? Like Verizon has a thing that's like, I think it's called Verizon Call Screen or something like that, that labels. It goes one step further than the phone provider does.
At the risk of sounding absolute, yeah, I probably would.
Okay.
I do. I have a Pixel phone myself, and it kind of comes with a lot of that stuff on it, and I don't turn it off. I leave it on because it filters 90, 95. It has a fairly high success rate. Stuff still gets through, So I still have to have that healthy degree of skepticism and awareness. But yeah, if you don't have something like that, Will, or if anybody doesn't have something like that, I think that's potentially useful. Just get it from a trustworthy source. You don't want to get it from, Tom, Dick, and Harry up the street have an app that stops spyware or SMS spoofing.
You are in San Francisco. There probably is a Tom, Dick, and Harry startup somewhere around here.
They're probably trying to get their next round of venture funding.
Yeah. Do you want to invest?
But in order for this to work, you have to give that app pretty low-level permission to access your phone calls and SMS logs, which is like that's special information to me. That's like that's the thing I wouldn't give random app B from the App Store.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it does sound like, I guess, to kind of piggyback off of that, then the guidance would be if it is something that is included with your phone's operating system, like, stock Android. Yeah. I'm not an iOS person really. So if Apple were to do something like that, that seems like your best bet because it's most trustworthy.
I think so.
And then from there, I do know that a lot of the major antivirus providers, so like Malwarebytes and, I think Avast has one, McAfee has one, where they do have these apps or other services where you can have your text messages like screened to see if they have like indicators that they could be, a risk or some kind of like scam.
It all helps. Absolutely. I would do that.
Yeah, I kind of like your piece of advice earlier in the show where you just said, just assume everything could be a scam.
Yeah.
I mean,
sadly.
Because that honestly seems to be the case now. Because I wanted to also mention, too, that the danger I feel like now when I'm talking to people, which I think causes the whole, like, I'm just going to glaze over and not pay attention anymore, is that when you tell them that legitimate companies are getting hacked and that people can basically use their ability to worm into these servers or whatever and send out emails that are actually will get checked as or verified as legitimate, but those contain spammy or like scammy things, people are like, well, what's the point of doing any of this if the companies I'm supposed to trust can't be trusted? So whatever, if something happens to me, something happens, and I'm like, no, that's not how we want to approach this. It's like, well, you could just lock your door in the middle of San Francisco with the doorknob locked, but I don't really think that's going to be your best bet.
Yeah, you can't trust anybody all the time. You just can't. So you bank with a bank and you say, well, if I can't trust email from my bank, who can I trust? Or I can't trust anybody. And the answer is, I'm not saying you can never trust that bank, but you should be skeptical, even if it looks like a legit email, even if it looks like a legit link. Be skeptical. Just don't just click on that. I know you use Amazon, and that's the other thing these unfortunate scam predator people prey on is percentages. Like how many people in the United States have ordered at least one thing from Amazon.com over the last 5 years? A lot. I don't know a number, but it's a lot. And so when someone gets a text message and they say, oh, I was convinced because Amazon has a refund and I used Amazon in the past. How do they know? How does the scammer know I used Amazon? Because everybody uses Amazon, right? How do they know I bank with this bank? Because 60% of Americans have a bank account with this particular bank, something like that. But it works. It convinces people that it's authentic enough to interact with the scammer, and that's all they need is a little edge.
So I guess moving on to more like actionable things people can do, because I feel like for everyone who's listening to the show right now, I think pretty much everyone is very tech savvy, and for that audience, I can more comfortably recommend things like, hey, use an email masking service, even have like actual separate inboxes for things, so that way because if you only ever use a certain email address for your shipments and you start getting spam to it, it's been compromised, or that it's not likely to be applicable if it's coming to your primary email address where they're like, hey, your return didn't go through. And you're like, well, I never do anything with this email address. So that's obviously a scam, right?
Right.
What's your recommendation, though, for people who don't have the capacity to track all that? The same people who are very difficult to get onto using a password manager, the basics that we want them to do.
What do we do for that?
Go.
Pray.
Right, yeah.
Oh, no.
A lot of prayer.
Cross our fingers.
Keep the money in the mattress. All that. I don't know.
Toilet tank for me.
It's all the stuff we've been talking about, honestly. Like the foundational stuff, Elena, is communicate with folks, instill a healthy degree of skepticism, and actually something you led with a little bit is folks should recognize that everybody gets scammed, everybody gets targeted, and most people at some point in their life are going to get scammed, whether it's big, small, life-changing, tiny, $2 at the gas station because this person needs to buy gas to get home. That may or may not have been a scam. You don't spend the rest of your life, beating up yourself about it. But when a relative of mine got scammed, they were so embarrassed and ashamed that they didn't want to tell anybody. They didn't want to tell the police. They didn't want to tell me. They didn't want to tell someone that could genuinely help them. So I think a lot of what my concern was there was they didn't know that it was okay, not okay to be scammed, but okay to talk about, being victimized so that we can make it better next time. And I think that's one piece of kind of unconsidered advice that a lot of folks in our industry don't really instill. Like I have a buddy that works as an IT director, and he was talking about his awareness program for employees about scamming. And we talked about this exact topic. He said, we mentioned in passing that it's okay to tell IT if you get scammed. You should immediately come to IT. And that was about it. Not, hey, we're not going to fire you. Hey, we're not going to make you a pariah. Hey, we're not going to blame you. And he said, and at one point there was a person that got scammed, and that person's manager belittled them. Is probably the best word. Yeah, like berated them for being scammed, and whether it's a good or bad scam, whether that person should have been aware or not aware, it doesn't help to be mean to somebody that got victimized like that. It doesn't help the company. It doesn't help the person. It doesn't help anybody.
It makes them less likely to report it the next time it happens.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it will happen.
Or
it happens to everybody.
It also creates an environment where people see that happen, and then they are most likely to want to talk about it as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or to ask questions when they see something similar. Like I got my Twitter account got hacked one time. I was getting on a plane. I clicked a link from somebody. I logged into Twitter. And then when I landed from the plane trip, I had like 300 messages from people that were like, yo, your Twitter's been hacked, dude.
Oh, God.
And this was in probably 2010 or 2011. So it was a long time ago. It was relatively low stakes because it was before anybody cared about Twitter. But like it happens to everybody, right?
Yep.
Like before I used a password manager, my passwords got compromised. It was why I started using a password manager. And that was a learning experience for me that was like, oh, okay. In fixing this hack, it's just as easy for me to start using a password manager and use different passwords on every single site that I use than it is like this. It became the perfect time for me to switch to using a password manager, basically, because I had to go back and reset all those passwords anyway and reclaim those accounts and like get them unbanned in some cases and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I normally am not one to promote like paid services just because I think that, it's the best way to do things. But one thing I really do like about Apple's, I think, iCloud service is that it includes the whole hide your email, hide your address service. So that if you're using their built-in password manager, it also provides basically an email alias or mask for your email address.
Nice.
So that way it also comes to your, I really like this for people who are more like, I guess you could say like mainstream, normie, whatever word you want to use, because that way you can kind of get this benefit of being a little bit more under the radar when another inevitable breach or leak happens, right? So it's harder for someone to build a profile about you based on your email address.
Yep.
But you don't have the logistical overhead of, some of us more crazy types who have multiple email inboxes perhaps, or, are trying to keep things, much more complicated because we like a complicated system. And I just wish, I guess, that was more available, because I know I heard rumblings, I don't know if you heard as well, Mikey, about how Gmail is supposed to start coming out with kind of a service like this.
I haven't, but that would be cool.
It would be really helpful, I think, because it's really hard for me. It's like it's so hard to sell people on, well, I need you to sign up for another service to keep track of so that you can have a million email addresses that your password manager will need to keep track of. And you're going to do all this so that you stay safe on the off chance that someone tries to scam you, which, in your head is probably probably likely low.
Yep.
But yeah, it's
Fastmail does that too. It integrates with 1Password and everything, so it just generates them on the fly.
Fastmail?
It's really good.
yeah,
Fastmail,
but that's a paid email service,
Yep.
and most people aren't using paid email. They're just going to use Yahoo. I guess Outlook now, not Hotmail, and Gmail, and then also whatever as iCloud service that Apple provides, and I think that covers pretty much everything. Like I was looking at Google's password survey that they did, like they released like last month, and it was like of the 3,000 respondents, about on average 4% use a paid password manager, and I think maybe only like low teens use a password manager
At all. Ouch.
of these respondents, right? So I'm not sure
And
how
that's
diverse the group is,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing to some degree they're going to be more likely to want to talk about their tech habits, which means they're probably a little bit more tech,
Yep.
affiliated. So it's depressing. Sorry, go ahead.
Can we talk about passkeys?
Yeah.
Are passkeys good?
Wait, hold on. Let's move over to viewer Q&A.
Okay.
So Will's kicking off the Q&A. Yeah,
Will's
yeah,
kicking
yeah.
off the Q&A here. If you got a question, get them in the chat right now. If you're watching or listening to this later, Mikey will be gone, but I'll try to maybe forward some of these questions on to get some answers. If you're watching or listening later, there's a link in the description over to our Discord. You can pop a chat in the Full Nerd Questions channel. And like I said, hopefully, if it's directly for Mikey, I'll try to follow up and answer in Discord. But if it's something just generally related, then we'll hopefully get to the next show. But first question comes in from one Will Smith.
I see on this Google password report that scams raked in $16.6 billion last year. Can I get some of that? How can I get in on that?
That's a different question than I thought you were going to ask.
Absolutely. I'll send you a link, Will, and you just need to tap that link on all of your devices.
And I put my bank account information in there, and then the money just comes.
And then you get the money.
No. For real though, like passkeys. Like everybody's pushing me to sign up for passkeys.
Everybody.
Everybody. Amazon,
me.
Google, the DMV that I get texts from.
The DMV.
Are passkeys good? Like, are passkeys better than two-factor and using separate passwords everywhere? Like, what's the right? Like, when should I use passkeys and are they good? I guess is my question.
Are they better? That's the tough part. So passkeys are theoretically more secure against the types of compromises that single-factor password is vulnerable against.
So it ties it to like your phone and a password type thing?
It ties it to your device by basically exchanging a key. There's an asymmetric key. Thank you. I don't know which one is right. The one with the smiley. Hi.
I could tell you were looking at that one.
Hey, how are you? So passkeys are cool in that they use asymmetric cryptography. And if you think asymmetric cryptography is cool, give me a little thumbs up in the chat because you and me are the only people on the planet. But they are cryptographically more secure. They're better protected against guessing because it's very difficult to guess them, spoofing, or even asking someone. One of the most common attacks, the My Mom attack, which just asked somebody nicely. Mom always told me you want something from someone, just ask nicely.
Yeah.
And so passwords are not as good as passkeys. Passkeys and single-factor and two-factor auth, where one of the factors is a password and another one is like a token or a hardware token or a code or something like that. There's a lot of debate. There's a lot of benefit drawback. There's a lot of push-pull there. So I can't really say two-factor is better than passkey or passkey is better than two-factor. I think it's very subjective, and it's like comparing apples and oranges. But they're both better than just using a password and nothing else as authentication.
Okay, so better to use a passkey than just use a password alone.
Absolutely, absolutely,
yes,
100% absolutely, yes.
And then, like, I have this YubiKey here that sometimes asks me to plug itself in, and it's like, hey, man, you need to tap this button on this thing and put it into your USB port. And is that better than the passkey, or is this just like an impossible to answer question?
So the YubiKey contains, and YubiKey can contain passkeys, so that's kind of cool too. The YubiKey contains those secrets, and it's in a physical form. So if you think it's better to protect it in a physical form, then do that. YubiKeys are tamper resistant. They're designed to be destroyed rather than actually be compromised. There's a lot of protection you get there. But of course, the downside is you have to have the YubiKey or you don't authenticate. Like it has to be there in your presence.
If you lose it.
Yeah, you lose it, you lose it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, one more follow-up, Elena, and then I'll let you go.
Yep.
But do passkeys and YubiKeys and two-factor all kind of protect you from man-in-the-middle attacks? Like I read about an attack the other day where somebody calls your bank and then somebody else calls you, and those two people are talking to each other, and they do the thing where they trigger the verification text that comes from your bank to you while they're talking to you on the phone and your bank on the phone, and then they pass the code from you to the bank, which is why the bank says, hey, never give this code to anybody.
Right.
Like, does a passkey prevent you from that kind of attack, or is that more...
That's more awareness, I think, that's going to protect you than anything else. Every control helps. Every factor helps. That's always the case. The more proofs that are required, the better off you are. So I don't think it would have necessarily protected someone from that, like a passkey, because then it would just be, well, let me use a different form of authentication.
Okay.
So, but it would definitely help. I definitely, yeah. I like YubiKey. I really do like the product. I like the approach. But of course, I lose things. I lose things a lot. I would not be a good candidate for a YubiKey.
That's the thing I worry about. Also, passkeys. I mean, I guess I don't anymore. But like I used to switch Android phones literally like every couple weeks when I was reviewing a lot of them. So it's just like I can't tie it to one piece of hardware.
But now the standard luckily supports multi-device.
Yeah,
oh, really?
Now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so I actually want to back up just a little bit because I think most honk honk.
Nice.
I do think most of our audience is very technically savvy, but for those who follow us more for the hardware coverage and maybe aren't as up on the security stuff, I just want to give a quick kind of like quick intro to this. So different layers of things, right? So we have your passwords, your standard issue passwords, and obviously there's the longer the string is, the more random the string is, all that. Then
actually, there is new guidance. You did a video on that.
The password guide, yeah.
Yeah, so we can talk about that in a second.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I guess very general guideline on it is that more random, better for security, right? But that's only one layer. And passwords vulnerability is that if it's shareable. So if someone knows what the password is, they can use it wherever. The counter to that for passkeys and the way they work is that basically it is tied to the device or not just device, but to whatever vault is holding it. So that could be a password manager. And that has kind of a little asterisk on it that I'll get to in a second. And so it's tied to that, and it's also tied specifically to the website. So when this pair of keys are generated, it's basically like only these two things are allowed to use it. So that's why it's resistant to phishing. And it can't really be shared the same way that a password can, which is why Mikey is saying that it is a step above security if you only have a single factor, right? So your passkey is a single factor, your password is a single factor. Yep. It's above that. Now, if you add two-factor to passwords, now that's raising its level of security because now you have to go through two checkpoints instead of just one to get into the account. So even though a password is shareable and can be used by anybody who knows what that is, if they don't have your second factor, they can't pass that second checkpoint and get into the account. And so where I think that it can be complicated for people is that they don't understand the different forms of two-factor. They don't understand there's kind of like a ranking system, right? So your S tier, we're going to use video game language here. Your top tier is something like a hardware key because that is physical, it can't be replicated, and it's unless someone comes to you like the XKCD comic and just hits you with the wrench to take it, as opposed to trying to extract the like whatever secret you have. It is very hard for them to do that especially they can't do it from some remote country, so they can't hack your account that way. Next down the line is something like a software token, right? So that's like something Google Authenticator is generating, Bitwarden Authenticator, Authy, all these other apps, and you can do it either cloud-based or local only. So I think for Android, there's Aegeus. I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's a Greek word. And then there's like Ravio, I think, for iOS, and those are local only. So you would save all the seeds, which are like, I don't know what the actual technical term is, but it basically whatever generates that code in the app, you can save those, encrypt those, and save those onto a device or wherever you want to save it, versus a cloud thing where it's being saved in the cloud for you, which is a little less secure, right? So we have these layers again. And then that can be compromised when what Will was talking about, so that if somebody calls you and says like, hey, I'm helping you through this, can you open up your app and give me this token? Then they can, if they have your password as well, then they can pass that second checkpoint, because like a password, that one-time passcode is not tied to a specific device or website or anything or location. And then I guess kind of one half tier down from that are the ones where you like tap something on your app to give access, right? So instead of even inputting a code, it's even faster. You just hit yes or no or approve, right?
Or is that like take a screenshot of a QR code on your screen or something like that?
No, this one, like when your software app, instead of generating a one-time code, it basically pushes a notification. And I think that's how LastPass got hacked, if I remember right, or one very major company, because they were spamming this person's phone for it. And I think maybe what happened was the person maybe didn't even mean to hit it, but because you're trying to get the notification shade clear, right? You hit the wrong thing and then oops, all access. And then once you're down from that is like your SMS code stuff and your email codes, which are not secure because those systems aren't encrypted or anything, right? So you have this tiering system for 2FA, which is why I think, and Mikey can talk more to this, is that passkeys are being recommended for a lot of, like, especially mainstream users, because they don't have to deal with 2 checkpoints. They don't have to deal with an extra app. They don't have to deal with a hardware key, as Mikey said. You can lose if you're not careful, so you have to also build in redundancy into your system, which is even more overhead. The thing with passkeys that can be difficult for some people to understand is that, like you were saying, Adam, like if you lose your phone, what do you do? The thing is that it's also, I wouldn't say it's not as secure as you think, because as long as your account is secured, you're okay. But a lot of these passkeys are now being saved to basically like your Google Password Manager or your Apple Password iCloud keychain, whatever it's called. So in theory, if someone has access to your account, then they could get access to all your passkeys, thereby
and the passwords if you keep them there.
It's the same, but it's the same thing as principle. As if your password manager is compromised, you're boned. You're host. And so that's where it kind of comes in, where it's like, okay, it doesn't protect against everything, but a passkey for most people is going to be less friction to use, thereby more secure, because you don't have to worry someone's going to use password 1589 instead of something more secure. You're not asking them to memorize a bunch of passwords. It's baked into their operating system of their phone for the most part. So you don't have to ask them to memorize a different password. So that's the whole like background usability aspect for it. The one thing it doesn't protect against, that I've actually I was talking to somebody at a security expert yesterday about this, is that passkeys do not protect against session hijacking. That is separate. And Mikey's laughing. So maybe you can more eloquently summarize that quickly for people what I'm talking about there.
You said it dead on. I mean, it's once authentication happens, once you prove you're Adam Patrick Murray to Amazon.com, if an attacker can grab that connection in its state after you proved who you are, that's a session. They can become you.
Does that require access on the machine, though?
The most common, there's a variety of different ways to do it. The most common is actually called a man-in-the-browser hijack, which is where some victim installs like their browser extension. So Adam Patrick Murray installs some browser extension or some plugin or some add-in in his browser, and this plugin does some maybe legit stuff, but also when it notices that he's connecting to a high-profile site, waits for him to authenticate using a passkey or whatever it is, and then gets that session information over to me. And then I become Adam Patrick Murray, and I order all my garbage that I'm going to be ordering.
You don't want to, what are you implying? That I'm ordering garbage?
That you normally don't imply or order garbage is what I'm implying. And so,
some truth at this table.
It's like a form of man in the middle, Will, but it's browser based is the most common man in the middle right now. It's usually the easiest and most successful.
Yep. And so part of what I was talking to them about is that everyone's security is very aware this is a thing, and so they're working on ways to harden that. And website owners can do things to, and they were saying, I was actually asking, and they said passkeys are actually very helpful for this because it makes the login process much easier for people.
Absolutely.
That they actually can reduce the session length times, which is helpful. As a potential strategy, right?
Interesting.
Right? So basically it's like, okay, well, if we make your session expire more often, but it's easier to get back in, then you won't care so much.
The usability doesn't change.
Yeah,
you're
and
right,
so
you're right.
then someone who's trying to steal those cookies or, way of, proving authentication, it won't be valid for them to use. And there's a bunch of other stuff that he mentioned that sounded really kind of cool from a technical standpoint, but I won't bore you all with that. So it's something they are looking into, but there are basically, the whole point of me saying all this is that passkeys are helpful, but there are limitations to what they help with.
Yep.
And for anyone who has never used a passkey, the flow of it kind of looks like this. If I were to describe it verbally, is that your device, like say you're trying to log in on your PC, your phone is available to you with all your passkeys. The site goes, log in with your passkey. Great. It pops up a QR code. Since this is a QR code that you specifically asked for, it's okay to scan. So you open your camera app on your phone. You hit that QR code with it. You see a little thing that says use passkey. You click on that. Then you allow your device to communicate with your PC. And then you can choose whether or not it remembers that device. And then after that, you use some kind of biometric form or your PIN for your phone. And then you approve the use of the passkey, and then you're in. And it sounds complicated, but actually it is so much faster than using a password. Especially if you do allow your devices to remember each other for your set stuff, right? Your personal items. It's very, very quick, and you don't have to think. You don't have to memorize anything. You just need to remember what your phone PIN is, or that you just don't have a mouthful of food when you're trying to scan for your face biometric ID.
Too late.
What happens when you lose your phone though? Like what happens when when you drop your phone in the lake and you don't have a backup? Do you have to recreate all those passkeys by logging in the old way again?
I'm talking a lot. We should let our expert talk.
I believe because certainly the multi-device passkey standard has been out long enough where most folks are adopting that. As long as you have one device that has previously been trusted and authenticated, I believe you can just, when you get your new device, add it to that chain of trust, going through the process Elena is talking about. I believe. I've not done that. I don't lose my devices often enough. So it's an interesting question, but I don't know. I believe it's designed to be usable in that way, where a device that's added to that trust just gets those passkeys that you've already created. But I'm not sure. I mean, correct me.
So it kind of depends on the implementation, from what I understand. And that's one of the things I talked about yesterday with that expert, is that different organizations are thinking about this, right? So let's say you're using 1Password or Dashlane, like a third-party manager. They are going to have certain ways for you to get back into your account, so that way you have access to your passkeys again. Apple has their system where if you're already logged in on a different device, like let's say you have an iPad, an iPhone, and a Mac, well, as long as your new device is in the literal physical vicinity of that existing device, then it'll allow you to authenticate that device. So it's easy for you to get back up and running with the new phone after you dropped it in the toilet or whatever.
Interesting.
I don't know what Google's system is. Like you, Mike, I try not to tempt fate by doing things like that. But what you can always do, and so here's the thing about passkeys, unlike passwords, you can have multiple of them attached to an account.
Yeah.
So similar to having multiple forms of 2FA attached to an account, depending if the website allows it. But for passkey specifically, it is allowed. And so you can basically just put a passkey on everything that you would want to have it as a backup. So you can have multiple, you can have a second phone that is just as your backup for your passkeys. You can have a YubiKey or multiple YubiKeys. Or other hardware keys that would have additional passkeys. So that way you're never really fully locked out. Think of passkeys as almost more in principle. I think of them more as like actual physical keys, like how if you lost your house key, well, if you have other copies or if you store them, you leave one with your friend that you trust, that kind of thing, then you will be able to get back into your accounts.
And you still want to keep those recovery keys that they give you when you set up 2FA or passkeys on your account generally, right?
Yes. I don't recall if I don't think I've ever set up an account with only passkeys, so I can't speak to whether or not that generates recovery codes. But what I always tell people if they're worried about switching to full passkeys and they might lose their device is that just put an insane password on your account with 2FA and then store that in like KeyPass, so a local password manager that you have control over. And then either if you feel comfortable enough storing that in a specific cloud account that you know isn't is run by a company that has insane, like for example, I have a friend in security who is more comfortable using KeyPass with his vault stored in his Google Drive, than he is with third-party cloud manager, because to him, he's like, Google's security team is so much more robust than a third-party password manager. I trust this system more than I would a typical cloud solution, right? So you can come up with all these kind of things for yourself and your level of comfort. But basically, I tell them, put a really good password on it, add a really good form of 2FA, and then just leave that as your backup. Right, sure. That's like less likely to get compromised if you're not using it regularly. So that if you lose your device, you have another way of getting into it that doesn't require like hunting around. Like, where did I put that YubiKey? You know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I just eat the YubiKey every few days.
we're gonna get to a point where we're just gonna embed it. You know, like those people who install microchips in their skin.
Yeah. Oh man, I would do that. That sounds great. If I just tap it, boom.
Tap, tap, tap. Let's get to some more questions and then we'll get out of here.
He's like, no more security. We're done.
No. It's security questions. It's security
Adam's
questions.
dying a little bit more every minute.
Itchy Hillary 08.
We needed that. We needed that after all the
dryness. You should see a medical professional, Itchy Hillary.
Yeah. Born in 08, so it's okay.
You know what? Maybe they were born with eczema or something. Let's not shame them.
What is Microsoft even using a TPM module for?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Or all?
Yeah, this is a you question.
Okay. Primary use for TPM is to store the cryptographic key that Microsoft uses to protect your data on your computer with BitLocker. BitLocker is the encryption software that Microsoft in Windows vWord and later protects all of your data with. And they store the key, because cryptography requires a key, in the TPM. It's a component either in your CPU or on your motherboard, and it is tamper resistant. It is very good at providing keys. It's very good about either forgetting keys or self-destructing if keys are tampered with. So it's what really protects your data, making sure your data is kept secret at all times when it's stored on a Windows computer.
Was it only BitLocker, or are there other things?
There's other things. There are other uses for TPM. TPM is kind of a general platform. BitLocker is the primary use. Office 365 uses it actually for licensing. They hold the license key in it, which is
that important.
God.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was a problem a while ago. Those not clever people. See, I use good terms, right? Not clever people at Microsoft that were doing that.
The stupids. The stupids.
Thank you, the stupids. The stupid devs at Microsoft said, "Hey, you know what? We're not really sure how this TPM works. Let's store the key there for this Office software, and then let's just overwrite whatever else is on the TPM, like the BitLocker key." Yeah, hey, that sounds like a really good idea. Ding, dang, dong. And these people lost all their data.
Wait, when did that happen?
It was a few years ago. It was actually like 2019, 2018, somewhere in that. Yeah.
Good job.
Does stuff like Smart Boot store in there too?
Sorry?
Do your secure boot keys and stuff like that stay stored there too?
Sorry, I got to stop laughing. So the secure boot stuff actually goes along with like the core of the core trust in the device. And so what happens there is like when your system starts up, it's looking to see if the system has been tampered with since the last startup process. And the values that it uses for that are actually stored in the TPM, yes.
Okay.
So it's a critical part of that, yes.
So it's storing any kind of encryption keys that would want to be kept secret, right? So like I would imagine even like if you installed a third-party password manager app, it would likely be making you. It could make use of.
How do you
TPM.
know? Does it tell you?
You know, if it blows up Windows and wipes the BitLocker key, ding dong dong. I guess. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also,
like Windows Hello requires TPM, right?
Yep.
Like that's one of the big ones.
The biometric stuff. Yeah. And I think also, so if like, by the way, you can store passkeys in Windows. Cool. So I think it would be stored. That would be stored there too.
I don't know. That I don't know.
That's what I would assume, but we all know what happens when you assume.
Yeah.
Also, I'm pretty sure our audience knows this, but for anyone who's listening and is not so much up on the software side of things, BitLocker is not the only way. How do I put this? So if you're Windows Pro user, you would know about BitLocker, but just because if you're on a home license, it doesn't mean you're not encrypted. They just use something that's like I think a pared down version of it that you have no control over, and that's what distinguishes the two licenses. But you still have device encryption for any Windows home license, Windows 10, Windows 11. I believe both have it on by default if you log in with the Microsoft account. And that's one of the reasons why they require this. And again, it's the messaging.
Yep.
They didn't tell people this, and that's why people are so irritated. Like, why do I have to sign in with my account? I want a local account. And they never explain that for most users, it made sense for them to log in with an account because then they automatically stored a backup of that encryption key to the account so that if the laptop took a dive into a lake or got busted somehow, you could still get the data off the the storage drive.
Yeah.
But most people were like, why is this like required? And like the technical people who like wanted just a local account, right? They were like, why is this necessary? Well, they didn't explain it. So then everyone's like,
that is funny.
You sound like my cat.
Look, there's a new local account install hack, by the way. I found out last night.
Oh, another new one?
There's a constant stream
because the
of
other one
these.
doesn't work?
Yeah,
the other one doesn't work anymore.
No more commands.
Oh, dang it.
It's easier. You don't have to restart it anymore.
Is it
So
the
you can
MX CSH handler?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
And it just pops up a local account creation, and then you don't have OneDrive infesting your machine.
That's nice. Okay.
I mean, it still asks,
I haven't had to do that.
even when you don't log in with an account.
You just uninstall it, and then it's problem solved.
That's true. You can do that. Yeah, that's true.
Uninstall OneDrive, uninstall Copilot.
Earlier, friend of the show, Pedro Akura asks, what's Mike's opinion on Windows 10 LTSC?
Oh,
Sorry.
Maybe you should have asked that question while he was trying to finish drinking some
next
water.
question.
I feel like we covered this one already.
Right when I was drinking water.
I know, but you know.
Okay, you really want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Wow. If it's used correctly, it's awesome, and nobody uses it correctly.
What is it?
LTSC, long-term servicing channel, or used to be called LTSB, long-term servicing branch, or people that are old like me remember when it was called Windows Embedded. Windows Embedded.
Oh.
Yeah, there's well.
Like in my ATM in the airport. That's the thing that blue screens the screens in the airport. I love that one.
Oh yeah. It's an operating system. It's a version of Windows that's designed specifically for single use. Like one thing that happens on it. Like you're creating an altimeter for an aircraft and you need an operating system to display and read the sensors. You use Windows LTSC because it is single purpose, single task. Microsoft doesn't release a whole lot of patches for it because it's very much like implemented as a closed system. It is bulletproofed, but it's not designed for regular use. It's not designed for multi-purpose, multitask, like day drive kind of use. But some people, especially right when Windows 10 launched in 2015, said, hey, look, Windows 10 LTSC requires less patches, but it's still Windows 10. I'll deploy that as desktop to all my users. And now all these users don't get feature updates, compatibility updates, normal nice things.
Wait, they're still running the launch version of Windows 10? That sounds great. I'd love that. That was when Windows 10 was good. There was no Copilot. There wasn't like a OneDrive integration.
That was when
it
all
wasn't
those
like
privacy issues were there, though.
Consider Game Pass.
Oh yeah, that's true. Actually,
the Game Pass one drives me a little nuts.
Yeah, I know.
Hey man, you should buy OneDrive. Oh, you already have OneDrive? I'm going to sell it to you anyway. Live 365 anyway.
But you would be stuck with Candy Crush Soda Saga.
Ooh.
No, it's just a shortcut. You just delete the shortcut. It downloads it from the store.
So yeah, I do not like LTSC unless it's used correctly. If you're building a device and you need an OS for the device, and you don't want to use Linux because Linux, that small form factor like Raspbian, is just actually better for most of those cases, then you use Windows LTSC.
Okay.
That's what it's for. That's what it
Don't
does.
use it for home use.
Yeah, please don't.
Okay. Perfect. Let's see.
I got one.
I got one too.
Oh.
Wow.
But I
please.
can say that at the end.
Elena.
It's for
it's a
Mikey.
funny one. Okay.
We have Gentle Stone from YouTube chat asking, is Google an okay password manager?
Yes.
Next question.
Next question. I use it. I like it.
So Mikey, do you have a preference between like third-party password managers and browser password managers and OS password managers?
Nope.
Okay, just use a password manager.
I think the biggest issue with passwords is people using weak, short passwords. And all of those solutions that you're talking about there, in one way or another, solve that problem. They have a lot of benefit. And all of them have weaknesses and downsides. But ultimately the worst part of passwords, and the reason Microsoft is so hell-bent on having people stop using passwords, is the most common password in the world used to be, until this year, was the word password.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. This year it got overtaken. The new
it
most
assword
common
now?
password.
Password. That's pretty good. Oh man, I should
Will
change
was
all my passwords
waiting
to that.
to
That was
just be
Gordon's.
able to
That was-
say that on air, but
Shout out to Gordon.
legitimately.
Well
That
done.
was Gordon's password for a long time.
Oh my gosh, that does sound like him.
Damn.
Yeah.
It is the newest. The world record holder now is 1 2 3 4 5 6.
Yeah.
I did see that.
I use that on the lab machines.
I use that on my LTSC. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like you
the
anymore,
smile
Adam Patrick
that
Murray.
dropped off of Mikey's face so fast.
God.
So I guess, Mikey, just kind of as a quick follow-up to that question, there's always like shades of nuance to this, right? Where it's like, there's like, I always think of them as kind of like thresholds, right? So the first threshold is like, just stop using bad passwords, which is why it's okay to use Google Password Manager.
Yes.
But once you're in that tier, now you've crossed that threshold into using a password manager, there are still better versions, right? Because like, I think one of the reasons why browser passwords are locally, I guess, saved to the browser, or even if it's, synced with your Google account, kind of get a bad rap, is because there is malware, like malicious browser extensions that try to steal those credentials from your machine, right? So I guess like once you've crossed into this threshold, do you start to care, or are you just so concerned about people just crossing that first threshold that you don't mind that people are using something that could be a little more vulnerable, versus like at the top of the tier, that threshold is like KeyPass, right? Where they're only saving it to the local devices and then using like sync thing or whatever it's called to like go sync across those devices, right?
Yeah. I think the second thing you said is the correct thing, which is anything is better than you have to type in your own password and you have to remember your own password, or you have to type in your own password and it's saved, in one place, or you use Notepad or Word document, seriously,
No, I know it's a thing. That's why I said that.
Or a Post-it note and a pen. A lot of people still use that as their password manager, and that's not.
Question for you when you're done talking.
That's not good because it leads to bad password behavior, right? No scammer is gonna call you and wind up, or sorry, no man in the browser attack is going to compromise your Post-it note. It's a bit out of band, but you're not going to create a 27 character hyper complex combination of characters and write it on a Post-it note, because it's just totally unusable. So password managers breed good behavior because they have good behavior. Or because they're usable, rather, is what I should say. And once you get out of just regular crude password creation, you're right. It's more about features than anything else. You want to use LastPass or KeyPass or 1Password or soon to be obsolete Microsoft Password Manager as part of the Microsoft Authenticator. Use whatever you like.
Warden.
Okay, so my potential fighting words for you is that I have actually come around to this idea of people writing down their passwords, but in a specific case. So the longest time I was like, okay, like I was kind of almost like evangelizing this, where it's like, okay, everyone's got to get on password managers. Like I got to convince my older relatives or like people who are not tech savvy to just freaking use a password manager. And I realized that's not going to happen. Like that's really not like that. But what they will do is that they will write it down in a notebook. and they will store that somewhere safe. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually more okay with this. And I think this is a fine solution for people of this particular mindset, which is I'm going to write down a pretty decent 16 character or whatever password. You know, my niece or whoever showed me this website that will generate it for me. Right? I'm just like showing them like, you know, whatever legit password manager site, because they all have this password generator thing on them. Like you can go to Bitwarden, you could go to NordPass, you can go to LastPass, whatever. They all have a password generator. And I tell them, just tell them how long you want it to be, use that password, now write it down on your list and put that somewhere where someone can't easily find it. But you know where it is, because the likelihood of someone breaking into their home and stealing those passwords is less likely than them getting hacked because they use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
See, and now I disagree with you.
Here we go. Fight.
Here we go. Ding.
So
round one.
When you have, I'm okay with people whipping out a notebook or Post-it note or something like that and writing down passwords. But I'm not okay with them using a password generator to do that. I'm okay with them using the XKCD style correct horse battery staple, if you know the reference.
The passphrase.
Yeah.
Because isn't that the new NIST?
The new NIST guidance that's coming into effect for passwords is passwords should be at least 24 characters long. They should preferably be 32 characters long. They don't need to be changed ever. There's no password expires after 30 days. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they should. We don't force the complexity of uppercase, lowercase, number, all that garbage on them, as long as it's long enough. And that advice comes purely from a how passwords are cracked perspective. Password crackers, length is everything. The only thing that really matters in terms of cracking passwords is how long the password is going to be. And most people create a password exactly the minimum length. Mm-hmm. If passwords have to be 8 characters, yeah, exactly. They're going to create an 8-character every single time. Statistics prove that out. So I would tell your relatives, write down the password that you create for this site or that site, but instead of creating this alphanumeric hash that you're never going to remember and is not going to be typable, pick 5 words. Make a sentence, make a short sentence, write that sentence down, because that's a natural thing to type, right? It's very usable, it's very functional.
Sure.
They might remember, but even if they don't remember it, be super easy for them to type correctly the first time. And against attacks, it's extraordinarily effective at brute force attack prevention.
Wait, hold on. Well, I got a return volley here.
Oh, here we go. Round 2.
Round 2. So here's my counter to it.
Yeah.
And I agree with you for the most part.
Yeah.
But the problem is that there are websites that still limit you to like 16 characters. And the reason why I came up with this system for them, I'm still at my Dukes up here, is because as I understand it, and I do want you to correct me if I have this wrong, is that in the absence of length, a random password has more entropy to it,
that's true.
randomness to it,
you're right.
than a few words strung together, because it's harder to get the randomness you need for a passphrase if it's condensed to a shorter string.
No, I don't know. I don't.
Or the entropy isn't as high. Like the ability to crack it is easier than with the.
Well, you're talking about if there's actual like words that are in rainbow tables and stuff like that, right?
Yes.
But combining those words together, well...
Because the other thing, too, with a good passphrase is you actually have to use a certain system to put the words together to create the necessary randomness. You can't just put words that might be like related to one another or like make sense to put next to each other.
No, it
together.
actually is fine.
Really?
Yeah. If you decide... I really like AMD processors is your favorite passphrase, then I really like AMD processors with a period at one side, preferably, with spaces in the middle. And most people, almost every user, by the way, every normal user, those normies out there, don't think that the space is a valid character in a password. And it is. It is.
Well, sometimes.
Almost all cases. And actually, this gets back to how we got on this topic, is Elena saying, well, what if the bank that I'm using only allows 10-character passwords, or only allows then use a different bank, find another service, because they are they are actually
can't.
Yeah, you're not going to get your family members to do that.
Yeah, exactly. See,
you're not
thank you, Adam. Dukes are back up here.
Come on, you're going to walk into her family and be like, your bank sucks.
I'm going to tell my relatives
Yeah.
who have a bank that speaks Cantonese to them and tell them to switch to a bank that's further away that does not have Cantonese Cantonese speakers at their local branch. Ain't happening, bro.
Now you have benefit and drawback, and I'm all about that. Right? Benefit, they speak Cantonese. Drawback, your family's accounts are going to get compromised because they're using like a 2-character password or something like that. I mean, there's all benefit and drawback. I wouldn't use a bank that forced me to use, and Bank of America used to do this way back in the day. It maximum of 12-character passwords. I remember it was minimum 8, maximum 12. You couldn't use space, underscore, colon. There was this huge thing.
A shocking number of financial institutions actually still have these very low, like maximum password limits, and it is infuriating.
Kick them to the curb, sister.
Infuriating. I
should check mine.
Realistically, it is so hard to get people to change. Like, you cannot make them change these things. It is just so integral to their lives.
Probably more likely to get them to sign up for a password manager than switch their bank.
Yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%, or at least 95%. It is so difficult. Oh gosh, Mikey, what are you asking me to do?
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
Go ahead.
The passphrase thing with the letters and symbols between it, numbers and symbols between it, is my favorite solve for like.
Yeah.
Hey, I need a Netflix password that I can type in on my TV without making me crazy and stuff like that.
Yep.
That is the worst part.
And like most password managers now let you generate those based on some rules. Now the problem is you have to keep hitting the button until you get the combination of capital letters and symbols and all the requirements that like your stupid password rules have.
Well, because a lot of them still are like, oh, you still have to use one special character. You still have to use at least one, or two
symbol. You have to have capitalization. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
With
you can't have too many
maybe. Well,
yeah.
Maybe the apps will change.
Anyway,
fun.
Fight. Well, one last serious question, and then funny question. Then we'll get out of here. Right. Friend of the show, Ivan R.S. What enables zero-click exploits, and why no OS can resist them?
No resist. As if it's like a temptation.
No one can resist the temptation. Exactly. Zero-click exploits, for those of you that don't know, are exploits where an attacker takes advantage of a vulnerability in a system, whether it's an app or an operating system or something, or a driver even, without the user interacting with the software or the website. That's zero-click, literally zero-click. Flaws.
Does that mean like opening a website can do it?
So, right. But imagine if you got a text message, and your text message contained the exploit itself. The text message itself contains the exploit.
Like you don't have to click on a link.
Right.
Yeah. Just the text arriving, which has happened before, right?
Absolutely has. It's flaws. Flaws in the operating system, flaws in the app. It's usually a combination of the app that handles that API or however it's being exposed, the OS and the app itself. It's almost always code bug, like massive undetected code bug that enables zero-click exploits. What do you do about it? There's not a lot you can do, unfortunately, about
That's
it.
above your pay grade.
Yeah, you just general safety measures. There's not.
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers. Exactly. There's vulnerabilities we all live with on a day-to-day basis, and zero-click exploits or drive-by exploits, even, which is usually you click on something like a one-click. You click on a link, and it takes you. The link basically is a redirect link that bounces you through a few things that drop exploits. Those are all extremely difficult things to defend against. So minimizing your profile, and just keeping your wits about you, and when you know you're exploited, take immediate action. If you believe that you've been victimized, do something quickly. Get advice, talk to somebody, do what you're going to do.
One quick question. No fighting this time. I put my gloves back down. When you talk about minimizing your profile, what does that look like in concrete terms? Does it mean like when you install things on your phone, you actually maybe avoid installing more sensitive apps, like not using a banking app on your phone? Things like that. Like I'm that's how I hear it, but I'm not sure how you meant the idea of like minimizing your profile.
So it's a combination, really. It's both limiting your exposure or limiting the exposure of your data. Like I don't create accounts on websites if I need it if I don't need to. I don't provide data that I don't need to websites. Not that I'm being paranoid. The more data that's out there, the more likely it is to be exploited or exposed, rather. It's also not using apps that I don't need, or being very aware of the apps that I'm using and what they do, what access they have, because I'm in particular, and I've talked about this a little bit with Adam, I'm very concerned that a future wave of malware is going to come in from anti-cheat software and gaming. Because a lot of it has kernel mode or kernel level access. A lot of it is closed box. We don't know what it's doing. We don't know what it's accessing. And we don't know what data it's sending. And we have to trust the word of some random company that has no real stake in the game for my privacy. I'm fairly convinced that at some point or another, these game anti-cheat engines are going to start to introduce, malware. And I don't want to expose my data. So I will not, I don't know if I told you this, I will not install. And I by the way, just full disclosure, I love their games, but I will not install Rockstar game ever again on any of the computers that have any of my personal data.
Oh, because their launcher installs anti-cheat?
It installs so much anti-cheat, not just a little bit,
Wow.
so much.
Wow.
And it has so much access.
Dang.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, not doing that again. And does that impact my usability? Yeah, I can't play GTA 5. I can't play RDR2.
Do it on console.
Console peasants. I'm not going to become a console peasant.
Not a peasant. You're just getting to play the game you want to play.
Fair enough.
It just works. It just works, bro.
Although I guess that does also tie way back into the earlier part of the show when somebody was saying, like, what if I only ever use this PC for gaming? Because then that's another potential area for vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yep.
Games can be vectors as well.
So, so the game itself might not have any malware, but the ancillary anti-cheat software
anti-cheat might.
could potentially be vulnerable.
That's why it's the year of Linux. Everyone should just install SteamOS because it won't give you root kernel access. There we go. Boom.
Yeah.
You just
Problem solved.
You just literally can't play those games.
Sudo run hack.
Everything's solved. Let's go home.
All right, cool. Willis, last question.
Last question.
Better be a good one.
And this is a very serious one.
Oh.
For Mikey.
Oh.
Hey, tell me this. Is it safe to pick up a random USB thumb drive off the floor and plug it into your computer?
I knew this would come up.
Address this to the audience, please.
Okay. Which camera? The one with the face, right?
Smiley face.
Yeah.
Smiley face.
No.
And thank you. Can you
I'm sorry,
also,
my headphone cut out.
Can you turn to your right and look at one Adam Patrick Murray and tell him that?
Hold on, I can't hear anything. My headset. Yeah.
No.
Well, what was that in relation to? I didn't hear.
No. Peanut butter cups are better to pick up off the floor.
Hey,
Oh, Lord.
I don't. That's a whole thing.
I'm blaspheming now.
Mikey,
Hold on.
what if-
Sorry.
I went to Micro Center's opening
was
day.
not on the
You
floor.
did not.
It was
No,
yeah.
you didn't.
No. I signed up.
Didn't.
I signed up on microcenter.com. They said, "Hey, we're opening a Santa Clara store, and guess what? We're going to give away free thumb drives at the opening." And I was like, "I can't not have a free thumb drive. Are you kidding me?" So I went and I did it.
I'm having a Simpsons flashback. Free shower curtain.
Free thumb drive. I mean, come on, I can't get those
But, like,
anywhere.
This came from the drawer at the store that you could have conceivably bought, though, Mikey.
So,
Yeah,
is so
and it's yellow. And it's
well,
like see-through plastic. Isn't that cool?
I would be able to see the malware.
yeah, you'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
But Micro Center is not going to give him a.
Come on,
a
Micro
floor
Center.
thumb drive. This is
Yeah.
a real thumb drive.
But Micro Center, who created the whatever content's on there? Who created it? Was it Micro Center? No. Was it some third-party agency?
Hey,
Well,
that
plug it
got
in.
duplicated
That's the
data?
only way to
hold
find
on. It said it was made in Taiwan. I trust Taiwanese people. It's a great nation.
No. Well, but like, what's the difference between getting a Micro Center thumb drive and a SanDisk thumb drive? It's in a blister pack, but I can reseal that.
The question is, do you trust SanDisk?
Not really.
Okay, well then don't buy their stuff. Go with Kingston.
I mean, man, I've watched The Room. How do you really know you can trust someone, Mikey? That's the question, man.
You can't trust anybody. You should just go live in a shack in the woods and occasionally write a manifesto.
Oh, so we're just going
do have
to
a
do
newsletter.
a, what is it, on Walt, was it? Oh. Why Emerson, not Emerson?
On Walden Pond.
Thank you.
Row. I mean, I would love to do that. I can't afford a pond house. Are you kidding? That costs a fortune now.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Every
Here's
middle-aged
a
guy
good
in
question.
America wants a pond.
Here's a good question then. I like getting free thumb drives.
Oh,
Okay.
Good for you, champ.
Sweet Jesus.
Well done.
But is there a device that I can like plug this into, then plug into my systems to scan it? How would I know that this thumb drive is okay?
To make sure it's safe.
Okay.
This is actually, I'm stealing a question from the chat.
Can I borrow that for a sec?
Oh, here he goes.
Hey,
He's
I got
gonna
that for
eat it.
free. Don't.
Cool. So, how much is this thing actually worth? Right?
About
I'm asking the
$4.
audience out there, right?
No, it's 128 gig.
120
$4.
gig. That's great.
Come on.
Yeah, for $4 or
More
$5,
than
$6.
that.
What's your security worth? What's your safety worth? What's your peace of mind worth? Is it worth $4? Worth $5? So, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic.
Mike, you didn't
or mean,
answer the question.
But this is
Answer the
really
question.
a decision.
Answer the question right now, Mike.
So don't put this in anything that you care about would be probably my first bit of advice. If you are absolutely insistent on eating the food that you find on the floor or
boy.
putting random USB
It's
sticks
wrapped.
in your computer,
It was wrapped.
See, Adam?
No, it wasn't.
Are
It
we
was
done?
loose in a. It was loose.
No,
in
no,
a
I'm talking about the
tub,
food.
dude.
I'm talking about the food.
it was
I don't
okay,
eat
got it.
unwrapped food.
then what you do is you find a Linux computer.
Oh, there we go.
Your Linux.
A use for Linux.
Linux handles disk I/O a lot differently.
Because Linux doesn't get viruses.
I like the way I said it better because mine was accurate. So Linux, of course, Linux gets malware. If any of you think Linux never gets malware, you are incorrect. However,
You're dumb.
It handles disk I/O very
Now.
differently. And I would put this in a Linux machine and I would scan it. Actually, I wouldn't even scan it. I would just wipe the data off of this thing. If it had any non-removable partitions, like read-only
Which
partitions.
I've had some, yeah.
Right. I would throw it away immediately because you can't change the data on those.
Oh.
I would absolutely.
I know one that's on the table in there.
I would get rid of it instantly. It's not worth your time because you don't know what the software is and what it does, and you can't change it. If you could wipe everything off of this, and
Wait.
you could do that in Linux
Yeah. I was just going to ask,
Then
why
fine.
is Linux better?
because it handles disk I/O better. It handles when you put this thing into a Linux device. Linux does a lot different work. Windows tries to be very friendly and helpful and say, hey, if there's software on there, maybe I'll offer to launch it. Maybe I'll scan it for you and check it out. And hey, maybe you want this thing installed and blah. And it does that to be nice. Auto run. It's called auto run.
Okay.
But in the context of doing the right thing, it oftentimes will activate malware. It will oftentimes do the wrong thing. I wouldn't put this in a Windows machine first. I would definitely Linux doesn't do any of that. Linux.
What about Mac?
I don't know anything about Mac. I have more common sense.
Oh, nice. All right,
Oh,
we're
Will,
friends again.
he's coming for you,
So-
Will.
Look, I'm an iPad user. I don't use a Mac. Mikey, what about one of my favorite things about the modern era is that I can just plug a USB-C cable into my computer and charge off of that.
Yeah.
And there are those USB ports all over the world now. They're like in airports and at the Nathan's Hot Dogs at the LBCC.
It's hot dog.
Can I just plug into those and it's fine? It's probably okay, right? Because it's data and
I
power.
won't say it loud. No, don't do that. That's bad.
Wait,
Better or worse than public Wi-Fi?
technically, yes, you can, but you should.
Oh, yeah,
You
true.
should.
Good point.
Actually.
Actually.
Mikey still didn't answer my question. Is there a little device I can buy on Amazon that I just plug a USB thumb drive into,
I can
then
make you
into
a cable.
Windows?
Yeah, I'll make you a cable that fixes that for you. You just cut the
don't
two
trust
data
him.
leads.
I don't trust him.
You just cut the data leads and plug it in. You can use it all you want. It's fine.
Right. Yeah. There's no like pass through the data, but not the malware.
Okay, what
dongle.
if a dedicated device running Raspberry Pi, that I just carry around with me all the time, and all its sole function is just to check USB drives, and it give me a green light that says you're good to go, or a red light that says you're not good to go.
How many of these stray USB drives do you pick up
He
in a
has
day?
so
I have a
many.
lot of them.
He has so
I actually
many.
do.
Dude.
Come on,
So
you go to trade
many.
shows. I do have a lot of them.
It's
He has
actually
a pouch.
pretty funny.
He does?
He carries the pouch with like 30 different thumb drives in it, dude. It's
Those
a
are good
nightmare.
ones. Those are good ones. Those are ones I bought on Amazon.
They're
okay?
the keepers.
The keepers.
We'll go to trade shows. I'll
I
pick up
actually-
some.
No.
The airport.
He's not lying. I have a little pouch here. This is my pouch of
That is a
approved thumb
Razer or
drives.
a Asus mouse pouch.
So
You-
all of these I
He
bought.
has poured out
Actually,
5
no,
different
except for
thumb
this one.
drives
This is not.
onto the table.
But I don't use this one. I should probably get rid of this one.
Mikey's answer about using a computer you don't care about is the right one. Just plug it into Mikey's computer and see if they're any good.
Well, but he has Linux, so it handles
I like the way you said that.
SkyOS
Linux,
different.
not a computer I care about. I like the way you said that, Will. I'm going to misinterpret that intentionally. Dude, you need to stop picking up straight drives.
No.
Really, this is a problem.
This is for
Mikey.
work. These are my work thumb drives. One has a Windows 11 installed.
Great.
That's this one.
Business critical.
This one has my
information on
benchmark applications.
Yeah,
It says
yeah.
benchmark applications. This is BIOS. It's FAT32. I only put BIOSes on here. And then this one is just random files, like transfer if I need to.
there. Also, probably turn off auto run on your computers, dude.
Yeah.
Please.
No. These are good. These are good drives. I bought all these drives. I know exactly where these drives came from.
It is a good thing that Adam,
This one I got it from Micro Center.
I'm really glad that Adam is actually past the era of trade shows where they would constantly give you free thumb drives.
Yep.
And it actually, it's probably why I got picked to cover security for PC World. But there was a point, like maybe 5 to 7 years ago, where I would just start asking them. I was like, "Do you have a link? Because I don't want to have to plug this in. Like, don't make me do this."
For like media kits and stuff like that.
Elena, look, I'm old enough that when I first started going to trade shows, they handed you paper in a folder for the press kit. So you had to take that and then go scan those pictures to get your web story pictures.
Okay, Will. Will, do you want me to not call out your age, or do you want me to call out your age?
Good point. Fight.
The thumb drives were good for a little bit, and now they're not.
Because there are times where you're like, "Why are you trying to make me feel old?" And I'm like, "Is this a thing where only you're allowed to do it?"
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works.
I will take any vendor provided thumb drive, please. Yeah, you can give hers to me. I'll take
Oh
them.
no. Okay, so Adam is publicly outing himself as the weak point in our group.
Yep.
No, because now I know I just need to have a tablet that's running Linux, and all it handles is checking.
You missed the point entirely, didn't you?
But you said Linux handles disk I/O so much better, and so nobody.
I also said just throw them away, recycle, make them into art. Make some USB art.
I got this. Come on, you're Micro Center.
The art.
I like the idea, Mikey. Yeah, make it into art.
Like a little stick man.
Whatever.
Exactly.
There you go.
Whatever. Somebody said it earlier. Mikey's a buzzkill. Oh, here, no.
I'm a buzzkill. I am a buzzkill.
Datus, friend of the show, Datus says this guy is a buzzkill. You're right.
am.
You know what? Now we got to stop the podcast. You harshed my mellow. Oh, jeez.
I saw a really good deal on Amazon for some like anime SSDs that were like $8. I should get some of those for Adam.
How can you go wrong?
I did have to get the Mario Micro Express card for the
That's
Switch
from
2.
a reputable vendor.
It's just
And
anime. Mario's the anime character.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
that's a
check back
different
next
fight
week.
he's trying to start.
Check back next week for your fix.
Wait, did you just say Mario is an anime character?
Yeah, why not?
Oh no.
Are you? You're on the internet, right? You know that the internet is watching and listening. Are you sure? You gonna walk home at night? I mean, wow.
He's getting out his
me.
like anger from his cosplay photography days. Apparently,
Mario is no different than any anime character.
Okay, let's
Just because it's a video game. Just because it's a video game. Oh, I'm sorry. Video games can't have anime characters. I'm sorry. Anyway, check back next week for your fix of PC talk. This is what the diehards get, is waiting to the end of the show. Although some people tune out at the viewer Q&A because they're like, out here.
Wait, it makes it sound like that you should endorse you though, Will. You should have
I
an
do
arrow.
not endorse this
you need
man.
An arrow. There you go.
Need the arrow.
If you want to listen to us on the go, sign up for Apple Podcasts. You could probably order a thumb drive that has Pocket Casts on it.
Nope.
Or Deezer or YouTube Music. Anywhere that you can point your
YouTube
RSS
Music's still a
reader
thing?
to. Hopefully, YouTube Music is the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I might have
Google
installed that
Play.
app
Yeah,
often.
Anyway, also, guess what? We have a newsletter. You should start distributing the newsletter on a thumb drive.
No.
Because you know how many PC World branded thumb drives we have in this office right now?
Really?
We literally have a box of PC World
I could use a
branded
thumb
thumb drives. See? Yeah. See?
Maybe if they
Now
don't
he's
have
on.
the ability to use
come
a
on,
thumb
you
drive,
trust us.
You could fax it to them.
You trust us. You trust PC
Does
World.
he though?
Okay, well, you should.
No. No.
Sign up for my service. Sign up for my Patreon. I'm gonna make PDF versions of all your newsletters. Put it on a thumb drive, and I'll
Just
mail
make
it
a
to you.
zine, dude. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Anyway, it is at PCWorld.com/newsletters plural /the full nerd.
No, it's just
Sign up.
I believe. And
Okay.
so there's a list of PC World newsletters you can choose from. I highly recommend signing up for the PC World Full Nerd newsletter because it's not just a recap of the episodes each week. I also have a section for like cool news that I have been looking at during the week that I think might also interest other nerds. So there's a little bit of that in there. And then my colleague, Dominic Bailey, also is doing one called Try This. So it's just I think twice a week you get a little tip of, how you can make your tech work better for you. There was an accidental misfiring of the newsletter earlier this week. I think today's Tuesday, yesterday, but it's not supposed to come out on Mondays.
Malware.
So it was an empty newsletter, and people were like, "What am I supposed to try?" And then our Discord server was like,
"Try nothing.
You're supposed to just try being in June 16th, 2025."
Just try.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, listen, PC World newsletters. You never know what you get.
Yeah,
it's the fun part. Except for her, she knows what she's gonna. Yeah.
Nice
what
job.
she's going to do.
Nice
job. Anyway, thank
Nailed
you, Elena, for coming in and talking.
Yeah,
about
it was fun talking more than the expert we're supposed to be talking. Sorry.
Thank you, Will Smith, for holding down the TV.
Hey, I'm here with my boy Brad, and we're keeping it real up here
on the face of an anime character.
Can we do this just all the time?
Just have Brad up. I could probably superimpose Brad onto the Mario so that when he's here, it has a little like lip flap. We can make that happen.
Yeah. I want to thank Mike for hanging out, talking to the fine folks. Bringing all the fun energy and also bringing down my energy, unfortunately. Well, where can people find you? Where do you want people to come take your classes?
Do you want people to find you?
Do you want people to find you? No, nothing.
I don't do the shameless self-promotion thing. I really have trouble with that. Shameless.
Where can people send their thumb drives?
Send your thumb drives with all of your malware-riddled files to Adam Patrick Murray, care of PC World. He'll probably just put them in every computer he finds. Apparently, this is what I'm learning. Also, if you've dropped any peanut butter cups on the floor recently, send them to Adam Patrick Murray.
They're great,
dude.
Every time you do, Willis has a heart attack. Thank you, Willis Live, for having. No, he really does. Yeah, anytime I pick something up off the floor, he has a heart attack.
We don't want to give him a real heart attack.
I don't want to give it to him. I'm just saying it's a byproduct.
Why are you killing Willis?
So then stop picking up
Listen,
USB.
you can't say anything about killing Willis because
I'm metaphorically killing him. You're literally giving him a heart
They're all
attack.
just out to get me now.
I don't have no Willis 2.0 in my pocket.
We can't afford this with our healthcare system.
Anyway,
no.
Thank you for controlling the verticals and horizontals, Willis. Get us out of here.
Alrighty. Thank you, everyone.
And play
for
the
tuning
music.
in. We got the new music, the old music back. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's good to be back. Don't pick up USB floors off the ground, and stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
I got this one from Micro Center.
Oh, well, obviously. Totally legit.
Could never be compromised.
I feel like Micro Center is probably on the safe side of Adam's choices here. Like